Chapter 1. Dragon Mountain Calendar, Year 9616 Winter. Tranquil Sun Province, Azure River County, Water Rights County. A boy with red lips and white teeth, about 8 or 9 years old, wearing an exquisitely tailored white fur coat and carrying a spear pouch on his back, was nimbly scuttling through the mountain forest. In his right hand was a short spear with a black wooden handle, chasing after a frantically fleeing wild deer in front of him. The leaves around him shook and snow rustled down. Here! The fleeing boy suddenly raised his short spear high. His body slightly bent backwards, the strength from his waist to his right arm, and suddenly swung it. Shwa! The short spear in his hand flew through the air, scraping some leaves and crossed over 30 meters. It brushed past the back of the wild deer, and then pierced into the depths of the snow, leaving only a bloody mark on the back of the wild deer. The wild deer immediately ran even more desperately, drilling into the depths of the forest. Suddenly, with a whoosh, a stone flew out. The stone turned into a stream of light and flew through the forest for over 100 meters. With a bang, it pierced through the trunk of a large tree and accurately shot into the head of the wild deer. The hard skull of the wild deer could not withstand it. It staggered and flew for more than 10 meters before crashing to the ground, causing the surrounding snow to rustle and fall down. "Father!" The boy turned his head to look into the distance, and said somewhat helplessly, "Don't attack, I almost hit it. If I didn't attack, that wild deer would have run away. While running at high speed, your short spear's accuracy is still lacking. Tonight, go back and practice the short spear another 500 times. A powerful voice came from afar, and two figures were walking side by side. One was a rather sturdy middle-aged man with black hair and black eyes, carrying a weapon box on his back. The other figure was even more sturdy, more than 2 meters tall, and his arms were thicker than a normal person's thigh. However, he had a lion's head and a lion's body. Messy yellow hair draped over his shoulders. Impressively, this was the rarely seen lion man among the beastmen. He was also carrying a weapon box. "Brother Tong-san, look at my son, isn't he amazing? He's only 8 years old this year, but he already has the strength of an ordinary adult man." The middle-aged man laughed. "Yes, Snow Eagle is not bad. In the future, it won't be a problem for him to be stronger than you." The lion man joked. "Of course he's better than me. When I was 8 years old, I was still poor and playing with the children in the village. I didn't know anything. It was only after I entered the army that I had the opportunity to cultivate chi." The middle-aged man sighed. "As a father, I can't give my son too good of a condition. However, whatever I can give, I will do my best to nurture him." "Dongbo, you went from a commoner to a heaven-ranked knight, and you even bought a territory to become a noble. That's already very amazing." The lion beast man smiled. This middle-aged man was the lord of the surrounding 100 miles of territory, Baron Dongbo Lai. Baron was the lowest noble title in the Xia People's Empire, the Dragon Mountain Empire. When the empire was founded, the bestowal of noble titles was still very strict. Now that the empire had been founded for more than 9,000 years, this colossus had begun to decay. Some of the lower noble titles were even allowed by the government. When Dongbo Lai and his wife had a child, they decided to buy a noble title and a piece of land. This land was named the Snow Eagle Territory. He had the same name as their son, which showed how much they loved their son. Of course, this was only a small piece of land in the Water Rights County. "I only managed to cultivate dochi when I was 20 years old, but my son is different. He is only 8 years old this year. I estimate that he will be able to cultivate dochi when he is around 10 years old. Haha, he will definitely be stronger than me." Dongbo Lai looked at the boy, his eyes full of doting and expectation for his son. Looking at his strength, he should be around 10 years old. The lion beastman also agreed. They had experienced too much, so their eyes were naturally very accurate. "Father, you were so far away, yet the stone you threw could penetrate such a thick tree?" The boy was standing beside the big tree. He tried to hug it with both hands, but he couldn't completely hug it. There was a big hole in the trunk of the big tree. Such a thick tree. If I were to slowly chop it down, it would take a long time. "Now you know how powerful a heaven-ranked knight is," the lion beastman said. Next to him, Dongbo Lai also smiled proudly. As a father, he still liked to show off in front of his son. "Is it as powerful as a god?" The boy deliberately curled his lips. God. Dongbua Lai and the lion beast man Tong San were suddenly speechless. The founder of the Dragon Mountain Empire, the Dragon Mountain Emperor, was a powerful deity. This was something that almost everyone in this world knew. Dongbua Lai could be considered a valiant general in the army, but compared to a deity, there was no way to compare. It seems that practicing 500 spears this evening is still not enough. I will practice 1,000 more times, Dongbua Lai said while smacking his lips. Father. The boy's eyes widened. You. Let's see if you still dare to argue with me. Remember, arguing with your father will only make you suffer. Alright, let's go back. Dongbua Lai said. The lion beast man Tong San took out a black flute from his neck, placed it next to his mouth and played a deep sound. The sound spread through the forest. Soon 20 armored soldiers quickly came from the distance. Bring the prey back, Dongbua Lai ordered. Yes, Sir Lord. The soldiers respectfully responded. Dongbua Lai and the lion beastman Tong San brought the boy Snow Eagle to the highest point of the mountain. There were a large number of horses and nearly 100 soldiers. A huge white blanket was spread on the empty snowy ground. On the blanket sat a mysterious purple-robed woman. Beside the purple-robed woman was a cute 2 to 3-year-old child who was running and staggering. The soldiers looked at the purple-robed woman with awe, because this purple-robed woman was a powerful mage. Look who's here, the purple-robed woman said with a smile. The 2 to 3-year-old child immediately turned his head to look, and his eyes lit up. Big brother hug, big brother hug. The child twisted his butt and ran over. The purple-robed woman also smiled at this scene. The boy Snow Eagle immediately went to the front and squatted down. His little brother Shirtu jumped into his arms. Big brother hug, big brother hug. Snow Eagle picked up his little brother and kissed him. Shirtu, we hunted a wild deer today. Look. Snow Eagle pointed at the wild deer that the soldiers were carrying behind them. Night furnace? Night furnace? Shitu's little brother Shitu's eyes widened, and his mouth made an unclear sound. His little brother Dongbua Shirtu was only 2 years old. Although he tried to speak, his words were not clear enough, and he didn't understand much. It's a wild deer. It's a wild beast in the mountains behind our house. Snow Eagle said. Snow Eagle, give me your little brother. The purple-robed woman also stood up and walked over. Yes, mother. Snow Eagle handed his little brother over. The purple-robed woman said, I brought some osmanthus pastries. They're still warm. They're in the basket. Hurry up and eat them. Pastries? Snow Eagle's eyes lit up. He felt like he was about to drool, and he immediately ran over. I want to eat too. I want to eat too. Shita's little brother Shirtu immediately struggled in his mother's arms. When it came to eating pastries, he was the most active. He was usually very disobedient during meals. Of course there's food for you, you little glutton. The purple-robed woman looked at Dongbua Lai and Lionman Tong San. You two hurry up. I've also prepared some food for you. Haha. Master is not only powerful in magic, but also good at cooking, the Lion Man said. This Lion Man was a slave when he was young, and later became the purple-robed woman's servant. Although many years have passed, and their relationship is like family, the Lion Man still insists on calling her master. After Snow Eagle ate and drank to his heart's content, he looked into the distance. Because the place where they camped was at the top of the mountain, he could see some mountains and a lot of farmland in the distance. As far as his eyes could see, it was all his family's territory. It was because of his birth that his father and mother stopped their adventurous days and bought a noble title and a large piece of land. This land was named the Snow Eagle Territory. Dongbua Shuaying stretched his body, his face full of happiness. He had a loving father and mother, a cute little brother, and many kind people in the territory. Towards this kind of life, Dongbua Shuaying was really satisfied. The only thing that gave him a headache was that his father's training was a bit too hard. I need to practice the short spear 1,000 times, in addition to the original 1,000 times. There's also the more important spear technique and... Dongbua Shuaying's little face became bitter. Night fell, and the crescent moon hung in the sky. The wind was howling. Boom, thousands of meters above the ground. A huge bird that looked like a dark cloud was flying at high speed. This huge bird had a wingspan of more than 20 meters, and a total of 4 wings. Its flying speed was close to the speed of sound. It was an extremely ferocious and terrifying magical beast, 4-winged vulture. On the back of this 4-winged vulture, there were 2 figures sitting cross-legged. One was a man in silver armor, and the other was a man in gray robes holding a dark purple wooden staff. "Where are we now?" the man in gray robes asked. "Master, we have already entered the territory of Shui. I estimate that we will reach the Snow Eagle territory in half an hour." The man in silver armor looked down coldly, clearly identifying the position below. "In half an hour, I will be able to see my sister." The man in gray robe's voice was very complicated. "She really knows how to hide. Under the pursuit of our family, she hid for a whole 15 years. In the dark night, the 4-winged vulture headed straight for the Snow Eagle territory." Chapter 2. Night. On a warm bed, Dongbua Shuiying was leaning against the bed, reading a book. The light from the fire crystal lamp illuminated the whole room. The book was called 10 Extraordinary Nights. This was a biographical novel. Dongbua Shuiying loved to read stories, especially those legendary extraordinary ones. As a noble, his mother was a mage, and he had a large collection of books. Dongbua Shuiying already knew a lot of common knowledge. For example, knights could be divided into 7 ranks: mortal, earth, heaven, meteor, silver moon, legend, and extraordinary. Among them, mortal, earth, and heaven were considered ordinary knights. Meteor, silver moon, and legend were star knights. Above the star knight was the transcendent. These 3 ranks were very difficult to surpass. For example, his father and Uncle Tong were only heaven knights. As for the star knights, it meant that they were as dazzling as the stars on the battlefield. Countless arrows couldn't hurt them at all. They were invincible and could fight for the position of commander of the 3 armies. However, these were the powers of mortals. Even a legend knight who could destroy an army of 100,000. Although they had titles such as one-man army, the limit of mortals, and close to the power of gods, it was still the power of mortals. They could still be exhausted to death by numbers. But they could become extraordinary. That was the difference in quality. It was a leap in the entire level of life. They were no longer mortals but extraordinary life forms. The number of mortals no longer meant anything to them. Under normal circumstances, no matter how many mortals there were, they would not be able to exhaust them to death or even injure them. They had unimaginable power that transcended the material world. Even the gods were afraid of them. For example, the 1,000-meter-tall lava giant, or the purgatory demon from the abyss, they were all extraordinary beings. Humans could also become transcendents through cultivation. The extraordinary experts of the human race repelled the invading demons and killed all who dared to resist. They were the cornerstone of the human race, intimidating all other races. It would be great if I could become an extraordinary knight. I could catch a few demons to play with, get a dragon as a mount, and drink with the gods. Dongbua Shuiying looked at the story and laughed foolishly, as if he had become the extraordinary knight. Suddenly, ding! The fire crystal lamp at the side automatically extinguished. Why did the fire crystal lamp go out so fast? Dongbua Shuiying, who was reading excitedly, suddenly had a bitter and helpless look on his face. It's really pitiful to have a mother who is a mage. Even the fire crystal lamp will automatically turn off when the time is up. Yes, let's sleep. Without light, he could only sleep. Dongbua Shuiying fell into a deep slumber. In his dreams, he had transformed into a transcendent knight, omnipotent. Dongbua Shuiying couldn't help but grin. Evidently, the dream was very sweet. Dongbua Lai and his wife were also preparing to rest on the bed. Dongbua, I've been feeling uneasy lately. The wife lay in her husband's arms. You don't worry. We've been in Water Rights Town for 8 years and it's always been peaceful. Your family hasn't come looking for us. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Our family will live peacefully for 10 or 20 years, until our hair turns white. They won't be able to find us. They will never be able to find us. Dongbua Lai hugged his wife gently. The wife rested her head on her husband's chest. She didn't say much. She knew very well how powerful her family was. She was afraid that they would catch them one day. There was a trace of a smile on her face. She didn't regret her choice that year. If she had followed her family, it would have been a disaster for her. She escaped from her family and risked her life to get together with her lover. She even had a pair of cute sons. She was already very satisfied. Dongbua, will you regret it? The wife said softly. Once you're caught, they won't let you go. You and I have gone through many life and death situations together. Why are you still asking this? Dongbua Lai laughed. Yes. It was already late at night. The castle was very quiet. Other than the soldiers who were still on duty, almost everyone was sleeping. Boom! A large bird flew at high speed like a dark cloud. The rumbling sound of it breaking through the air caused some of the glass windows of the castle to shake. The large bird stopped in the sky. The gray-cloaked man and the silver-armored man looked down. We're here. The gray-cloaked man had a complicated look in his eyes. Sister, I really don't want to catch you. Alert! A powerful roar resounded throughout the castle. Lion Man Tong San let out a roar. Is it a beast man lion man? The silver-armored man looked down and asked curiously. It's a lion man slave that was assigned to my sister by the family. I didn't expect that after so many years, this lion man would still follow my sister. He's quite loyal. The gray-cloaked man looked at the lion man and remembered the young lion man slave who was locked in a cage. The young lion man slave had been silently following his sister. Now he was so majestic. The castle below covered an area of 2 miles. It was divided into the outer castle and the inner castle. The outer castle was inhabited by 4 battalions of soldiers and servants. Knights could bring their families to live in the outer castle. On the outer castle walls, there was a battalion of soldiers patrolling at night. There's an enemy. There's an enemy. The 300 soldiers on the wall each picked up a huge dark red crossbow beside them. The crossbow's thick crossbow had long been ready. They aimed at the 4-winged vulture in the sky. You go. The gray-cloaked man ordered. Yes. The silver-armored man jumped down from the sky. He didn't have any cushion at the height of 56 meters. His feet landed on the stone floor of the castle with a loud bang. The ground shook and the stone under his feet cracked in all directions. The silver-armored man looked ahead. At this moment, Dongbua Lai and his wife had already come out. Even Dongbua Shuiying and his brother Qingshi had woken up. There were roars and rumbles outside, so how could he fall asleep? What's going on? Dongbua Shuiying stood behind his parents with his brother in his arms. Mo Yangyu. The silver-armored man stood in the open space of the castle. He let a large number of soldiers on the distant wall point their crossbows at him. He said coldly, at this point you still want to resist stubbornly? Just obediently come with us. Look around you. Dongbua Lai shouted. The silver-armored man's gaze swept across the surroundings. On the distant castle wall there were also some soldiers on the ground. Each of them was holding a dark red crossbow. The silver-armored man's pupils shrank slightly. He then laughed, star-breaking crossbow. Impressive. A small territory within the borders of a county can actually be equipped with so many star-breaking crossbows? With so many star-breaking crossbows surrounding me, there is indeed hope of killing me. You are a meteor knight. If it was a one-on-one battle, none of us in the castle would be your match. Dongbua Lai said, however, there are 500 star-breaking crossbows. Each one of them can injure you. Together with the few of us, we have a chance of killing you. This is the territory of the Dongbua clan. The purple-robed Mo Yangyu said. You have invaded a noble's territory. This is a provocation to our clan. We have the right to kill you. Even if you die, you will die in vain. According to the empire's laws, nobles had special rights. Nobles' territories were inviolable. You two husband and wife should come with me. Don't be stubborn. The silver-armored man frowned. Nobles are protected by the empire's laws. Don't tell me you want to violate the empire's laws and forcibly abduct 2 nobles? The purple-robed Mo Yangyu said coldly. Little you. A hoarse voice came. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the gray-robed man on the back of the big bird in the sky. He held a magic staff in his hand, and suddenly, a terrifying and turbulent power gathered. A thick layer of clouds appeared in the sky, and countless lightning bolts flashed in the clouds. Many places in the castle below had traces of lightning appear out of nowhere. The countless lightning bolts in the dark night were magnificent, And when these lightning bolts landed on the bodies of the soldiers, they immediately screamed and fell to the ground. The star-breaking crossbows also fell to the ground. With just a wave of his hand, hundreds of soldiers were unable to resist. He had already shown mercy. Otherwise, all the soldiers would have turned into charcoal. The four-winged vulture in the sky also descended, and the gray-robed man walked down. He lifted his hood, revealing a slightly pale but still handsome face. This gray-robed youth's face was 70 to 80% similar to Mo Yongyu's. "Little you, do you still want to resist?" the gray-robed youth said. "Brother." The purple-robed Mo Yongyu's eyes widened. Her body trembled slightly. Chapter 3. Snow Eagle hugged his little brother, feeling nervous and surprised. Was this gray-cloaked youth Mother's brother? "Brother, it's been so many years." Mo Yongyu smiled. "I'm really happy to see you again. You've already stepped into the star realm. Are you a silver moon mage?" "Yes." The gray-cloaked youth nodded. The star realm of mages was also divided into meteor, silver moon and legend ranks. This gray-cloaked youth was a silver moon mage. Even in the clan, his position was quite high. Becoming a silver moon mage with your own strength, you should be ranked in the top 3 of the younger generation. Mo Yongyu said enviously, "Brother, when you become a legend great mage, you'll be amazing." Until now, there is no legend great mage in the clan. Wanting to step into the legend rank is very difficult. The gray-cloaked youth sighed. Legend rank. This meant that in the entire Dragon Mountain Empire, they would have a unique title. This was a terrifying existence worthy of respect, reaching the pinnacle of mortals. One more step and they would be transcendents. This silver moon mage seemed powerful and could easily destroy an army, but in front of a legend rank existence, he might not even be able to cast a spell. "You've violated the rules of the clan. You should know that our clan has been passed down for more than 1,000 years because of the rules of the clan," the gray-cloaked youth said. "Without rules, even the most prosperous clan will eventually fall. Our clan has fallen before, but now we've risen again. We rely on the rules of the clan, and those who violate the rules must be punished." "Tell me your choice," the gray-cloaked youth said. Suddenly the atmosphere froze. Donghua Lai, the Lion Man and Snow Eagle who was hugging his little brother were all very nervous. "I'm a noble. I'm protected by the Empire's laws. You can't violate the Empire's laws to capture us. Although you're strong, if you violate the Empire's laws, you can only die." Mo Yongyu stared at her brother. "Noble?" The gray-cloaked youth shook his head. "Until the last moment, you really won't give up. Don't look anymore, this time I've indeed brought an order." Mo Yongyu, Donghua Lai and the Lion Man's complexion changed. The gray-robed youth stretched out his right hand, and a golden scroll appeared out of thin air. He unfurled the scroll, and a mysterious power spread out. Snow Eagle, who was carrying his little brother, also felt this power. He felt that it was extraordinary and mysterious, and he couldn't help but feel awe. Empire Decree, Mo Yang Clan Decree. Mo Yongyu, a disciple of the Mo Yang clan, is sentenced to 100 years of confinement. Baron Donghua Lai, sentenced to 100 years of hard labor. Executor Mo Yang Chun. The gray-robed youth's voice resounded throughout the castle. Donghua Lai and Mo Yongyu looked at each other, feeling a sense of relief. 100 years of confinement? 100 years of hard labor. It's been too long, too long. The Lion Man on the side said anxiously. A normal person's lifespan is only about 100 years. Even if they reach the star level, their lifespan is only about 100 years. They are already so old. If they are confined for another 100 years, another 100 years of hard labor, won't they be confined until they die? "No, uncle, you are the executor. Save my parents, save them." Snow Eagle, who was carrying his brother, shouted. The word uncle made the gray-robed youth's body tremble. "I can't save them. No one can save them. My Mo Yang clan has strict rules. No matter who comes to plead, it's useless." The gray-robed youth shook his head. "Ooh." His little brother, Qing Shi, was crying in his arms. Qing Shi was only 2 years old and didn't understand much, but he could feel the atmosphere around him. Snow Eagle also wanted to cry, but he was even more anxious. He was already 8 years old and very sensible. His parents were to be confined for 100 years of hard labor. That was a punishment that would last until the day they die. His father and mother were his most important family. Save my parents, save my parents. Snow Eagle's eyes were filled with tears. Uncle, you must have a way. There must be a way. Snow Eagle, don't cry. Sure too, don't cry too. Mo Yongyu walked over and squatted down to hug her two sons. She turned to look at the gray-robed youth. Give me and Dongbua some time, okay? Okay. The gray-robed youth nodded. On a nameless mountain in Snow Eagle's territory, there was a wooden house. Dong dong dong, the mountain road shook. The lion man Tong San was anxiously riding a frost demon horse. The frost demon horse was extremely fast. This time it didn't wear any armor. From Snow Rock Castle to this mountain, it only took the time to drink a cup of tea. Zhongling, the lion man's loud voice anxiously shouted from afar. The door of the wooden house opened. A man with long silver hair, wearing a black robe wrapped around his body, revealed a green snake tail that was as thick as a person's thigh and about 2 meters long. That snake tail that couldn't be hidden revealed his identity. He was a snake man from the Beastmen clan. Moreover, his face was the same as a human's. Obviously, he was the most precious member of the snake race, the 6-armed serpent demon. Because he had 6 arms, he usually wrapped himself in a black robe. He didn't want people to stare at his 6 arms. Tongsan, what's the matter? Zhongling asked. Master's clan has finally caught up, and even brought an order. The lion man Tongsan was about to cry. You're the smartest among us, quickly think of a way. Zhongling's body trembled, and he lightly shook his head. The Moyang clan has already used the order. No one can save them. Only a legendary transcendent existence would the Moyang clan release Dongbo and Tongyu. Then there's really no other way. Tongsan was heartbroken. He couldn't forget. In his darkest and most painful days, that girl brought him to play year after year. Even when they finally escaped from the Moyang clan, he followed her loyally without hesitation. Time and time again, countless life and death situations. In his heart, his master was even more important than his own life. There's no other way. Did I ask you to come? Zhongling asked. Yes, it was master who asked me to find you. Tongsan said. Let's go, we have to see them one last time. Zhongling clenched his fists tightly under his black robe, his sharp nails piercing into his palms. Whether it was Dongbo or Ayu, they were both companions who had gone through life and death situations with him. How could he not be anxious and angry at this moment? But he had no other way. In addition, he didn't like to show his emotions, so he was almost always calm. Let's go. There was also a frost magic beast colt next to the wooden house. Zhongling and Tongsan immediately rode it to the castle. Inside Snow Rock Castle, Dongbo Lai and his wife were telling their son Snow Eagle what they had entrusted to him. Snow Eagle, this pendant is a storage treasure. It has a storage space inside and is extremely rare. Its value is equivalent to the entire Snow Eagle territory. Mo Yongyu took out the pendant from her neck. From today onwards it is yours. You must keep this a secret. Besides your Uncle Tongsan and Uncle Zhong, don't tell anyone else. Don't even tell your little brother. Your little brother is still a child after all. If he doesn't have a filter on his mouth, it might be exposed. The territory was there was no way to take it away. But once a storage treasure was exposed, it was very easy to be robbed. Mother, you take care of it. Snow Eagle said. When your father and I are taken away, the treasures on our bodies will also be taken away. Mo Yongyu's finger lightly touched Snow Eagle's finger. A drop of blood was taken out. Mo Yongyu silently chanted an incantation. Soon the drop of blood formed a magic pattern imprinted on the pendant. Snow Eagle immediately felt his spirit connect to the inside of the pendant. Inside the pendant there were some materials, gold coins, and even scrolls. The most important treasures in the castle have been placed inside. Oh right, there is still one more treasure with your father. Mo Yongyu looked at her husband. Dongbo Lai took out a golden book from his bosom. The entire book was completely made out of gold leaf. Gold could be preserved for a long time without being damaged. Only extremely precious books would be made out of gold. This is a spear art left behind by a transcendent being. Dongbo Lai laughed. The foundation I taught you before is also the foundation of this spear art. Those ancient great nobles have 3 or 4 secret manuals left behind by a transcendent being. Our family doesn't have many. This is the only one, and it is only a spear art. Therefore I taught you spear art since you were young. You must learn it well and remember not to leak it. Other than your Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong-san, you cannot tell a third person. Haha, when you obtained this secret manual they were also present. And Snow Eagle took the golden book. He immediately felt a strange fluctuation pervading the book. With a thought, he put it into the storage pendant. Let's go. Wait for your Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong-san. Dongbo Lai and Mo Yang you were waiting in the hall with their 2 children, Snow Eagle and Qing Shi. Soon 2 figures rushed in. They were Tong-san and Zongling. Dongbo Ayu. Zongling wanted to say something but couldn't. Before I leave, I'll have to trouble you too. Mo Yang you smiled. Tong-san's temper is rough. He can't manage the whole territory well. Therefore we'll have to rely on you. Zongling teaching Snow Eagle and Qing Shi will also depend on you. Don't worry. Zongling nodded. Leave it to me. Snow Eagle, remember, leave the whole territory to your Uncle Zong. Only when you are 18 can you officially take over. Mo Yang you looked at her son. She was worried that without help, the 2 children would soon be devoured by outsiders. Snow Eagle hugged his little brother. Qing Shi shrank in his brother's arms. He was no longer sad, but he was afraid. He was afraid of Zongling and Tong-san. After all, he was only a 2-year-old child. He was afraid of the lion-head Tong-san and the snake-tail Zongling mother. Tell me, where does the Mo Yang clan come from? How can I save you? Snow Eagle couldn't help but anxiously ask. Save? Mo Yang you and Dongbo Lai looked at each other. Don't think about these things. Live a good life, understand? As long as you 2 brothers live well, your father and I will be very happy. Mo Yang you said. Save them? The Mo Yang clan's rules were very strict. To make the Mo Yang clan break the rules and let them go, they would need to be a transcendent. Their own son becoming a transcendent? They didn't even dare to think about it. Tell me, how can I do it? There must be a way. Snow Eagle said anxiously. Wait until you get the Black Iron Order from the Dragon Mountain Manor. I will tell you the details. At that time you will naturally know how to save them. Zongling said. Mo Yang you and Dongbo Lai looked at Zongling blankly. Let's give this child some hope. Zongling said. Dongbo Lai also nodded. Snow Eagle was already 8 years old. Moreover, he was very intelligent since he was young. It was impossible for him to forget about this matter. It would be better to give him a goal. Dongbo Lai immediately said. Yes, wait until you get the Black Iron Order from the Dragon Mountain Manor. Your Uncle Zong will tell you everything. Dragon Mountain Manor Black Iron Order? Snow Eagle silently remembered. Late at night, the drawbridge of Snow Rock Castle was lowered. Outside the castle, the silver-armored man and the gray-robed youth stood there. Dongbo Lai and his wife were also saying their goodbyes to their sons. Snow Eagle, take care of your little brother. Do you understand? Mo Yang you said. Yes. Snow Eagle nodded. His eyes were red and tears flowed down. Wawa. Snow Eagle held his little brother's hand. However, his little brother Qing Shi suddenly burst into tears. Mo Yang you couldn't help but squat down and hug her 2 sons. She kissed them. Dongbo Lai silently stood at the side. His eyes also wet. Let's go. Mo Yang you clenched her teeth and walked towards the gray-robed youth with her husband. As they walked, they couldn't help but look back. Wah, don't go, don't go, don't go. Little brother Qing Shi cried and shouted. Holding his little brother's hand, Snow Eagle also cried and shouted, Father, Mother, I Dongbo Shuang swear. I will definitely save you. Our family will definitely be reunited, definitely. I swear. I swear I will definitely save you. No one will be able to stop me. Snow Eagle's shout echoed in the silent night. Mo Yang you covered her mouth and couldn't help but cry. Dongbo Lai's body was also trembling. The 2 of them walked onto the back of the 4-winged vulture. Let's go. The gray-robed youth lightly shook his head. Save. How to save? As the elder brother, he also wanted to save them. However, the Mo Yang clan's rules were heartless. No matter who came to plead for them, it was useless. Only a transcendent could save them. Not only him, even Donghua Lai and his wife never thought that their son would be able to save them. It wasn't that they looked down on their son, but they were afraid of a transcendent, and a transcendent was basically a legend. Who? The four-winged vulture flapped its wings and immediately soared into the sky. Donghua Lai and Mo Yongyu, who were on the vulture's back, turned their heads and looked down. At the entrance of the castle, the two children, one big and one small, were so thin and weak. Donghua Lai and his wife's hearts tightened. How could they bear to leave their own children? Live on well, live on well. Mo Yongyu silently said. In this life she would pray for her two children, hoping that they would be safe. Snow Eagle held his little brother's hand and raised his head to look up. The vulture quickly flew into the distance, becoming smaller and smaller in the distant night sky. Don't go, don't go. Little brother Qingshi cried. Donghua Shuang hugged his little brother and said, don't cry, don't cry. Father and the others are just going out for a while. They will be back soon. Big brother promises you. During the public period, there will be 2 chapters every day. 1 chapter at noon and 1 chapter at night. This is the first day of the new book. Please bookmark it and recommend it. Thank you. Chapter 4. The next morning. Water Rights Town, Dragon Mountain Manor. In every city in this world there was a Dragon Mountain Manor. The Dragon Mountain Manor in Water Rights Town was an ancient 5-story stone building. The entrance of the Dragon Mountain Manor was guarded by powerful knights. Commoners and nobles did not dare to approach within 10 meters of the main entrance. Once they approached, even the nobles would be killed. A white-haired old man in a white robe rushed into the Dragon Mountain Manor. Lord Yu Tuesday, the 2 knights at the door respectfully greeted. Is the manor lord here? The white-haired old man asked. Yes, the manor lord's face didn't look too good this morning. One of the tall knights replied. The white-haired old man entered the Dragon Mountain Manor and went to the 3rd floor. Dong dong. He knocked on the door. Come in. A voice came from inside. The white-haired old man pushed open the door and entered, closing it behind him. Inside was a glossy dark yellow long table with stacks of papers and books. Behind the long table sat a black-haired middle-aged man who was flipping through a scroll. This person was the Manor Lord of Water Rights Town's Dragon Mountain Manor, Lord Xian. You too, how is it? Lord Xian raised his head. The news is confirmed. Last night, Baron Dongbo and his wife from Snow Eagle territory were captured. The white-haired old man said. The guards of Snow Rock Castle tried to resist, but lost their ability to resist the lightning. Humph, the Mo Yang clan is really overbearing. Lord Xian frowned. Yesterday I received news from the county capital that they captured them last night. The internal security of Dragon Mountain Manor was very strict. The Empire's 19 provinces. Every province's capital had a Dragon Mountain Manor's main building, wielding a secret and powerful force. Provincial capital, county capital, county capital. 3 levels of management. The entire world was under surveillance. Who asked them to be the Mo Yang clan? The Mo Yang clan is one of the top 10 clans in the Eastfield province. The white-haired old man said. Humph. Lord Xian sneered. Among the top 10 clans in the Eastfield province, the Mo Yang clan is ranked last. Moreover, they relied on the influence of their ancestors, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to enter the top 10. That's a colossus that can crush us with just a little bit of power. The white-haired old man shook his head and sighed. How pitiful. There are only 2 children left in the Snow Eagle territory. I've investigated and heard that their 2-year-old son has been crying non-stop. Many of the soldiers and servants in Snow Rock Castle are heartbroken. Donghua and his wife are indeed very good to the people of our territory. They are very well loved. Lord Xian nodded. Snow Eagle territory at the peak of the tallest mountain, Snowrock Mountain, in the majestic Snowrock Castle. Some of the servants in the castle quietly discussed, but because of the Lion Man Tong San and the 6-armed devil snake Zongling's deterrence, the entire castle operated as usual. Although it was already daytime, Qingshi, on the other hand, had just stabilized his emotions. After his parents were forcibly taken away, his brother had been crying non-stop. No one could comfort him. In the past, it was the mother who personally took care of the child. His mother was a mage, so her voice could easily have a hypnotic effect. Coaxing a child to sleep was very simple. But now that Qing Shi had been stimulated, everyone had a headache. Previously, Qing Shi was already very afraid of the lion man Tong San and the devil snake Zhongling. The maids had never taken his brother to sleep, so Dongbu Shuang had to personally take care of him. Although he was sad, he still had to endure and coax his brother. Finally, it was daytime. His brother was also exhausted and seemed to have forgotten about his parents. After all, a 2-year-old child. Even when he grew up, he probably wouldn't remember what happened last night. Good, sure too, sleep well. I want to sleep with brother. Good. I'm accompanying you to sleep. Brother, I want to hear you sing. Gradually, his tired brother finally fell asleep on Dongbu Shuiying's chest. Dongbu Shuiying didn't dare to move for fear of disturbing his brother. In the evening, Zhongling and Tong San came outside the house. Let me see. Zhongling gently pushed the door open and looked inside. He saw the chubby little Qing Shi sprawled on his brother's chest, drooling on his brother's chest. Dongbu Shuiying was also fast asleep. His clothes were a little messy and the blanket only covered half of his body. Tong San also looked through the door. Seeing the two brothers snuggling together, his heart ached. In the past, Shi Tu was always taken care of by Ayu. The maids never took care of him. When he sees us, he gets scared. What should we do in the future? Don't tell me he needs to be coaxed by Snow Eagle every night? Zhongling was a little worried. Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong. Snow Eagle had already quietly moved his brother out of bed. You sleep more, Zhongling said. He knew that Snow Eagle definitely didn't sleep for long. In fact, Snow Eagle didn't sleep much. He was in a bad mood and had been coaxing his brother. He was too tired and started to doze off. He slept very lightly and was woken up when Zhongling and the others came. Fortunately, his physique was extraordinary and could withstand it. It's okay. Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, Shi Tu was always coaxed by his mother. No one has ever taken care of him. Dongbu Shuiying said, now that my parents have been forcibly taken away, the news can't be hidden. Now I can't let those servants take care of my brother. My brother and the others are afraid of you too, so I can only take care of him. Anyway, I only need to take care of him to sleep. During the day, I just need to arrange for someone to watch over him. During the day, he will stay in the castle. Many people can watch over him. It won't be a problem. Tong San said. Then I'll leave it to you. When your brother grows up, he will probably be fine. Zhongling said. Dongbu Shuiying didn't say much. After all, this was his brother. Since his parents had been taken away, he only had this one brother. Of course, he had to take good care of him. Oh yes, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong. Previously, you said that if I get the Black Iron Order of Dragon Mountain Manor, I will know everything. How do I get the Black Iron Order of Dragon Mountain Manor? Dongbu Shuiying asked. Zhongling and Tong San were secretly helpless. This child, it seemed that he still remembered to save his parents. As long as you are strong enough, Dragon Mountain Manor will naturally send you the Black Iron Order. Zhongling said. Strong enough? How strong? Dongbu Shuiying asked. Me, your father and Uncle Tong don't have the Black Iron Order. Zhongling said. When you are strong enough, Dragon Mountain Manor will acknowledge you and send you the Black Iron Order. Dongbu Shuiying immediately understood. If he wanted to get the Black Iron Order, he must first be stronger than Uncle Zong and the others. I understand. Dongbu Shuiying didn't ask any more questions. How long has Shi Tu slept? Zhongling asked. Almost 6 hours. Dongbu Shuiying said. Then get up. It's already evening. Shi Tu has been tossing and turning for so long and hasn't eaten anything. Let him get up and eat dinner. Also let the maids play with him. This way he will be able to sleep at night. Otherwise, if we let him sleep now, he will cause a ruckus in the middle of the night. Zhongling said. The sky was already dark. In the dining hall, Dongbu Shuiying sat at the head of the table, while his younger brother Qing Shi sat beside him. A servant brought food to them. Dongbu Shuiying's food consisted of fruit juices and delicately prepared beast meat, while his younger brother had some beast milk and grains. His younger brother ate happily. Dongbu Shuiying looked at his younger brother with a smile, but he felt very sad in his heart. In the past, his father and mother had been sitting at this table, But now, it was only him and his younger brother. Are you full? Dongbu Shuiying asked. And I'm full. I'm full. Qing Shi rubbed his belly and asked curiously, where's mother? Where's father? Why aren't they here? Are they still sleeping? They went out. Sure too, let's go to the back garden to play. Okay? Dongbu Shuiying said. Back garden, let's go to the back garden. Qing Shi's attention was immediately diverted. There were many playgrounds in the back garden. These were specially built by his mother for the two brothers. When he was young, he loved to play there. There were even some magical items. Bring young Master Qing Shi to the back garden. Watch him. Dongbu Shuiying looked at the three maids standing by the side. Yes. The three maids replied respectfully. They knew that from today onwards, this young man was the master of the entire Snow Eagle territory. Watching the maids bring his younger brother downstairs, Dongbu Shuiying leaned against the railing and looked at the back garden. There were more than 20 fire crystal lamps in the back garden, illuminating every corner of the back garden. There were also more than 10 servants playing with his younger brother. With so many servants arranged, they were all chosen to be loyal. Following which, Dongbu Shuiying stood up and went to his study. The study was very big. It was 6 meters tall, 15 meters long, and 10 meters wide. For the Snow Rock Castle, which occupied an area of 2 li, this kind of study was very ordinary. There was a table in the study, and a large number of books were placed on the shelves. Many of them were biographies and novels. In the past, Dongbu Shuiying loved to read stories, and his mother had brought him a lot of books. Sitting in front of the table, he flipped his hand, and a golden leaf book appeared in his hand. Transcendent Night Spear Art? Dongbu Shuiying immediately flipped open the book and started reading. Chapter 5. I Xia People, Mysterious Ice Knight Gu Yuan Han, leave my spear technique here. The pages of the book were densely covered with drawings. It was a small person practicing a spear technique. Wang. A mysterious and mighty power caused the air in the study to vibrate. Huh. Dongbu Shuiying was surprised. He raised his head and looked in front of him. He saw that on top of the book, there was a misty silver light. It turned into a beggar version of an old man. This silver light shadow beggar old man was a miniature human figure. It was only the height of a book. It was holding a long spear in its hand. The cold aura coming from the old man made Dongbu Shuiying couldn't help but shiver. Hua! The light shadow beggar old man held the long spear and practiced one move after another. The long spear was like a dragon. It was either furiously stabbing, whipping, or blocking. It was too familiar. This was the spear technique that Dongbu Shuiying had been practicing since he was 6 years old. It was a very common spear technique in the entire Dragon Mountain Empire. It was called Soul Spear Technique. Soul Spear Technique was spread all over the world. It was the simplest and most basic spear technique. It was known as the origin of all spear techniques. It didn't have any particularly powerful killing moves. All of them were basic moves. Many spear experts started from Soul Spear Technique when they first started learning spear techniques. I have been practicing Soul Spear Technique for almost 3 years. How come I don't feel that this spear technique is so powerful? Dongbu Shuiying stared at the light shadow practice in front of him. The light shadow beggar old man was simply stabbing. The spear body was like a swimming snake. It was rotating and stabbing. The power of the stab made Dongbu Shuiying's heart palpitate. When he withdrew the spear body also rotated in the opposite direction. He had been practicing since he was 6 years old. Now he was 8 years old, and it was already winter. He had indeed been practicing spear techniques for almost 3 years. The spear techniques that father passed down to me are very standard. He also taught me moves according to this set of spear techniques, but why do I feel that my spear techniques are different from his? Shuiying carefully looked at the spear techniques. It was the same basic spear technique. A master's drill was indeed different from a novice's drill. There's a kind of energy in his body. Every spear strike has a kind of energy. It's as if all the strength in his body is perfectly channeled into the spear. Dongbu Shuiying vaguely deduced. The book was open, and the soul spear art was being practiced. After half an hour, Shuiying finally flipped to the next page of the book, after who knew how many times he had read through it. This page was filled with densely packed words. Spear arts rely heavily on the foundation. The first set of spear arts that I will teach you is the source of all arts, heart spear art. Only when you have truly mastered it to the realm of perfection will you be able to learn my spear arts. Below is a set of battle chi circulation methods. My spear art is known for its speed. This set of battle chi circulation method will allow you to attack faster. The rest of the densely packed words were the mnemonics for circulating battle chi. This transcendent knight said it very casually, but in reality, this set of techniques was a priceless treasure. If two knights of the same level were to use 2 to 3 moves, the opponent would use a special battle chi circulation method to use 4 to 5 moves. Victory and defeat would be decided in just a few moves. My spear art is Mystic Ice Spear Art. It is divided into 3 realms. The first realm is Drifting Snow. Once you learn this move, you can be considered as a spear master. The second realm is Blood Rain. Once you learn this move, you will be able to move unhindered within the legend rank and have a chance to step into the transcendent rank. The third realm is Mystic Ice. Every transcendent has their own path. This move represents my path to transcendent rank, so I am called the Mystic Ice Knight. My path might not be suitable for you, but if you can reach this step, perhaps you can learn some battle chi circulation techniques. Dongbu Shuiying was excited as he read. As expected of a spear art left behind by a transcendent knight, it leads to transcendent rank. Continuing to flip to the back, the last page was filled with densely packed words and explanations of the dark ice spear technique. There were also some special do chi circulation techniques. These words and explanations took up more than 20 pages. They were very straightforward, and Shuiying was able to understand what this senior was talking about. However, his spear techniques were still too low, so he was unable to learn this spear technique. He flipped to the last page. There were some densely packed diagrams. The diagrams immediately lit up, creating a shadow of the old beggar. The old beggar began to practice Mystic Ice Spear Art. The old beggar first practiced Drifting Snow of Mystic Ice Spear Art. It was very fast. Once he started, it seemed like hundreds or thousands of spears, like countless snowflakes floating. At least, Dongbu Shuiying could not see it clearly. Then he practiced slowly as if in slow motion. Dongbu Shuiying could see it clearly. Then he practiced Blood Rain of Mystic Ice Spear Art, and finally Mystic Ice of Mystic Ice Spear Art. This spear art could only be described in one word. Fast. The pursuit of extreme speed. Of course, he still had to start from the basics of soul spear art. When this spear art was truly perfected, only then would he be able to learn the simplest Drifting Snow of Mystic Ice Spear Art. Otherwise, he would not be able to learn it at all. At night, Dongbu Shuiying had to coax his little brother to sleep. His little brother was very clingy. He made a ruckus on the bed for more than half an hour before finally falling asleep. The next morning after eating breakfast, martial arts field. This martial arts field, Dongbu Shuiying glanced around. In the past, his father also practiced here every day. Let's begin. Dongbu Shuiying put on the weights and began to run. The running range was around the entire inner castle. The inner castle occupied an area of 1 li. Running a circle around the inner castle was a few li. This was also the warm-up for his daily training. Dongbu Shuiying was already used to it. After running, he returned to the martial arts field and removed the weights. His whole body was sweaty and very comfortable. He walked to the short spear area. There was a large number of short spears here. Each short spear weighed about 5 jin. They were specially made for Dongbu Shuiying. Here. He picked up the short spear and threw it casually. It hit a thick target 80 meters away. This target was already covered with countless wounds. Go go go. Dongbu Shuiying began to run. At the same time, he threw the short spear. Turn back, run and throw. Hit the target while moving. Throw it for me. Dongbu Shuiying shouted. Yes, master. The servants at the side picked up some small targets and began to throw them in the air. Dongbu Shuiying ran 80 meters away and threw the short spear. Sometimes he would hit the target and sometimes he would miss by a bit. It was obvious that he was not good enough to hit a moving target. In his father's words, the short spear was only an aid. When running, he could hit a moving target 100% of the time. In the future, he would just have to practice 200 times a day to warm up and maintain the feeling. After 1,000 short spear throws, Dongbu Shuiying felt that his arms were very sore. His whole body was dripping with sweat. He was already used to it. After he finished throwing the short spear, Dongbu Shuiying began to practice a set of fist techniques. It was used to train the body's muscles and bones. It was also a middle-level Do-Chi technique called three-stage flame technique. His father had spent a lot of money to obtain this technique. The Do-Chi technique his father had learned in the army was only a low-level one. The Do-Chi technique was the most effective when the body was tired. The fist technique was a combination of hardness and gentleness. When combined with breathing, the whole body felt very comfortable. There was a faint mysterious power that drilled into the body. Every part of the body felt numb. His physical strength was also quickly recovering. After practicing three-stage flame technique twice, his arms also returned to normal. Good. Let's start practicing the spear technique. Dongbu Shuang picked up a long spear beside him. Because of his height, the long spear was only 1.8 meters long and weighed around 5 kilograms. Ha! Dongbu Shuang began to practice soul spear technique. He had practiced this spear technique for nearly 3 years and was very familiar with it. However, the feeling today was completely different. Yes, it's more comfortable to use force like this. Dongbu Shuang watched the Transcendent Knight practice the spear technique yesterday. When he practiced, he couldn't help but imitate that feeling. He immediately learned a lot. Stab. He held the long spear with his left hand and grabbed the end of the spear with his right hand. Suddenly, he exerted force. His right wrist rotated. The long spear was like a large snake. It produced a rotational force and suddenly pierced out. If it was an enemy, they would discover that the long spear was clearly pointed at their face. But when it rotated, the tip of the spear pierced their throat. This rotation had the effect of changing direction to confuse the enemy. Secondly, it also had the effect of increasing the rotational penetrative force. It was one of the key points of this technique. Boo! The tip of the spear pierced into an alchemy dummy that was fixed to the ground. The dummy was made of metal and had a layer of alchemy material on its surface. It was very tough and had an automatic recovery ability. At the very least, no one below the star rank could hurt it. There were only 5 dummies in the entire training field because each one was worth 500 gold coins. In his mother's magic lab, there was an even more precious alchemy dummy. They were all used by his mother for her experiments. Stab, stab, stab. Dongbu Shuang exerted force again and again. Stab in the middle, stab in the low, stab in the high. Stab in the left, stab in the right. This simple stab was the most important move of the spear. With every stab, Dongbu Shuang recalled the feeling of a transcendent knight practicing the spear. After stabbing 1,000 times with all his strength, Dongbu Shuang's right hand was very sore. His whole body was covered in sweat. In the past, he would only stab 500 times, but now he was squeezing himself dry. Boo! When he stabbed the alchemy dummy with all his strength again, the recoil numbed his hand. With a clang, the long spear fell to the ground. Dongbu Shuang knelt on the ground, panting. His whole body was covered in sweat as he looked at the long spear on the ground. Although he was very determined, when his body was extremely tired, he still wanted to give up. Dongbu Shuang raised his head and looked to the side. In the past, his father would stand beside him and scold him. Coward! You're tired already? You've only stabbed 300 times. With your body, it's normal to stab 500 times. You'll only feel tired after stabbing 1,000 times. I'm afraid you'll only reach your limit after stabbing 1,500 times. Even if you reach your limit, even if you hurt your body, you still have a medicinal bath at night. With this medicinal bath, even if you have a cut on your body, even if you break a bone, you'll still be alive and kicking the next day. How much better are your conditions? How much better are you than me? You can't even do it 500 times. Get up. Get up. If you don't get up, you're a coward. Only 500 times? Even a noble young master like you can't do it? Get up. I, Dongbu Lai's son, am not a coward. Get up. His father's roar vaguely sounded in his ears. Get up, get up. Dongbu Shuang grabbed the long spear and stood up. Stab. Dongbu Shuang stabbed again with all his strength. Father, I really want to hear you scold me again. I'll be happy if you call me a coward. Dongbu Shuang's eyes were red as he stabbed again and again. Only when he lost everything would he realize how precious it was. New book, please vote for me. Chapter 6. Finally, after 1,500 stabs, his entire body was covered in sweat. His right arm felt like it was not his own anymore. His right hand's fingers were completely numb. Finally, he relied on his willpower to endure until 1,500 stabs. Water, Dongbu Shuiying said in a hoarse voice. Master, water. The servant at the side was already stunned and immediately brought water. Dongbu Shuiying reached out his left hand to pick up a large cup of water and drank it all in one breath. He then started practicing three-stage flame technique. When practicing the Do Qi technique, his entire body would feel itchy. This time it was most obvious on his right arm and right hand. It was obvious that the mysterious energy of heaven and earth was constantly entering his right arm and right hand. The more tired he was, the better the effect of practicing Do Qi. Of course, his body could not be completely destroyed. Like how Dongbu Shuiying was working so hard, an ordinary person's hand would probably be crippled in 10 days. However, he had an expensive medicinal bath every day. After a year, an ordinary noble would go bankrupt. After practicing 3 times, the absorption of the energy of heaven and earth was very weak, so he stopped. At this time, his left arm was no longer tired, but his right hand was still a little sore. Start holding the spear with your left hand. Come. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes were very bright as he stared at the alchemy dummy in front of him. He held the spear with his right hand and grabbed the end of the spear with his left hand and suddenly stabbed. Tong-san, have you seen Snow Eagle? No. Zhongling and Tong-san were a little surprised and confused. It was almost lunchtime, why hadn't they seen Snow Eagle? Dongbu Lai and his wife had just been captured, so they were very worried about Snow Eagle. Where's the Lord? Zhongling and Tong-san asked a maid. The maid quickly replied, Master has been in the training field since morning. Still in the training field? It's almost noon. Tong-san was a little surprised. Usually, Snow Eagle would only train for 2 to 4 hours in the morning. It's been almost 6 hours since morning. Zhongling did not say anything and quickly rushed to the training field. As he neared the training field, he could hear bang, bang, bang. The continuous sounds were deep and powerful. Zhongling and Tong-san looked at each other and pushed open the door to the martial arts field. Zhongling and Tong-san were both somewhat stunned. The red-skinned young man was wielding a long spear with both hands, continuously lashing out at the alchemy dummy. Exerting strength from his waist, he lashed out with his spear. Once, twice, thrice. The same move was used continuously. The spear gathered power as it streaked across the sky, and the instant it struck the alchemy dummy, its speed reached its maximum and its power reached its maximum. The youth's skin was red, and the surface of his body was smoking. That was because of the heat rising from the surface of his body. His blood qi has surged to such an extent? Zhongling was shocked. Snow Eagle, take a rest. Have you gone mad? However, Tong-san became anxious. In the past, he had never seen Dongbu Shuiying so diligent. Moreover, his spear training to this degree was already close to the limits of his body. There's still a while left. It's not over yet. Dongbu Shuiying said. Don't worry. Snow Eagle will soak in medicinal baths every day. His body won't collapse. Let him vent. Zhongling was very worried. He wasn't afraid of harming his body during the training. After all, the medicinal baths every day could easily nourish and repair his body. He was afraid that Snow Eagle's state of mind would change. He had watched Snow Eagle grow up, and he didn't want Snow Eagle's personality to become strange. Dongbu Shuiying turned his head and looked at his 2 uncles. He smiled and said, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, don't worry. I'll be fine. He wasn't venting, but it was a plan he came up with after reading the Transcendent Knight Spear Art Manual. Without enough diligence, how could he become strong just by relying on a manual? Another cup of tea's time passed. Dongbu Shuiying practiced the 3-stage flame technique twice more. Only then did his morning training come to an end. After lunch, after accompanying his brother for a while, he picked up the spear and practiced again. Exerting strength with both his hands, he thrust the spear forward. All the strength in his body was channeled into the spear through his arms, causing the might of the spear to be much stronger than before. The spear stabbed into the alchemist dummy's face, throat, chest, and other red dots with great precision. This was the 4th part of Dongbu Shuiying's spear art training plan. Two-handed thrust. Thrusting the spear 2,000 times with both hands was a method to train his dou qi. Fire the arrows. Dongbu Shuang shouted. Yes, master. 10 servants stood 10 meters away from him. Each of them was holding a bow and arrow in their hands. The arrowheads had been removed, leaving only the shafts. They looked at each other hesitantly. In the past, when Dongbu Shuang practiced blocking, his father was the one who trained with him. But now, if he were to use arrows, if he couldn't block the arrows even though there were no arrowheads, it would still be extremely painful. The servants were also worried. Quick, act according to my previous orders, Shuang ordered. The servant could only obediently listen to his orders. Xiu. First an arrow was shot over. Shuang immediately used his spear to parry it. Extending his spear forward, he intercepted and deflected the arrow. One arrow at a time. Even though the distance between them was only 10 meters, the servants didn't possess any dou qi. Thus, even though the speed of the arrows was fast, Dongbu Shuang was still able to block them in time. He was extremely familiar with the block, grab, and deflect moves of the spear art. 2 arrows were shot over at the same time. Dongbu Shuang was obviously strained. Out of every 10 arrows, 3 to 4 would be hit. Dongbu Shuang's skin started to turn red and purple. Occasionally, some parts of his skin would even be damaged. However, such small injuries were nothing to Dongbu Shuang. Will spear art was the source of all spear arts. It was the most basic spear art of the Xia people. If one were to practice the spear arts over and over again, it would only be for show. One had to break down the moves of the spear art and practice them over and over again. Only then would the ordinary moves be able to display astonishing might. There were a total of 6 parts to the spear art. They were left hand stab, right hand stab, sweep, slash, two-handed stab, block, and free attack. In the middle, one had to use dou qi to alleviate the body's fatigue. Otherwise, one wouldn't be able to sustain the high-intensity training. He trained for 12 hours a day. After training, he would soak in a medicinal bath. Only with the medicinal bath would his body not collapse. Instead, it would recover and become stronger. His body, especially the bones and muscles of his arms and palms, were all transforming. At night, it was time for him to rest. He would have dinner with his younger brother, play with him, read some books, and then sleep. It might seem tiring, but in truth it was just like how a commoner would feel after a long day of work. After getting used to it, it would feel normal. Dongbu Shuang could feel that his spear arts were improving, and his body was getting stronger. Not only did he not feel tired, he even enjoyed it more and more. He would even smile when he was training, and would occasionally stop and frown in deep thought. Obviously, he was really immersed in the profound mysteries of the spear art. This caused Dongbu Shuang's spear arts to improve at an astonishing speed. 2 years later, winter. Heavy snow was falling. A valiant young man was currently wielding a black spear and practicing his spear thrust. At this moment, a servant was holding a shield. The shield was even wrapped in a thick layer of beast skin and cotton cloth. Although it looked very bulky, if it wasn't for the beast skin and cotton cloth, these servants wouldn't be able to withstand it. The servant kept dodging left and right, but Dongbu Shuang suddenly struck out with his spear. The spear was like a swimming dragon, spinning and piercing out with a sharp whistling sound. In an instant it had already pierced into the shield. The servant felt the force transmitted through the shield, causing his entire body to tremble. This spear was still all right, but when it was slashed out, the force was even more ferocious. Master, I can't dodge it no matter what, the sturdy servant said with a bitter expression. As long as you dodge it once, you will get a silver coin. All of you train well, Dongbu Shuang said. The other servants by the side were all envious. A silver coin was equivalent to a month's income. In the beginning, there were some servants who were able to dodge the spear, and Dongbu Shuang had given out a few hundred silver coins. But after that, it became too difficult to get even a single silver coin. My spear arts have not improved for a few days. It has reached a bottleneck, Dongbu Shuang muttered to himself. According to the records in the secret manual of Senior Mystic Ice Knight, should I start training in the withdraw technique? This force had to be released and withdrawn at the same time. Suddenly, Master, not good, not good. A female servant rushed into the training grounds. She was panicking. Dongbu Shuang's heart couldn't help but tremble when he heard her shout. He immediately asked what happened. It's Lord Zhongling. Lord Zhongling is heavily injured. The female servant said. There's blood everywhere. Uncle Zhong. Dongbu Shuiying was shocked. For the past 2 years, Uncle Zhong had been taking care of all the trivial matters in the territory. That was why he was able to immerse himself in his spear arts. Where is Uncle Zhong now? In Lord Zhongling's residence. Commander Tong is there as well. The female servant replied. Dongbu Shuiying put down his spear and dashed towards Uncle Zhong's residence. Chapter 7. Inside the room. On the bed, Zhongling was half lying on the bed while Tong San sat on a stool beside him. The two of them looked at Dongbu Shuiying, who ran in from outside. Uncle Zhong, are you all right? Dongbu Shuiying looked carefully. Uncle Zhong had already changed into a clean white robe. He didn't seem to have any injuries, but his face was pale. Zhongling smiled. The leader of the Bent Blade Union is truly powerful. If it wasn't for the protection of the alchemy armor, I'm afraid I would have lost my little. Cough, cough, cough. As he spoke, he coughed and covered his mouth with a handkerchief. The white handkerchief quickly turned red, and blood began to spread. Dongbu Shuiying's heart trembled. Vomiting blood? Was it an internal injury? Uncle Zhong. Dongbu Shuiying sat on the bed. It's all right, I won't die. Zhongling put down the handkerchief and threw it into a basin. This injury is nothing. When your parents and Uncle Tong were adventuring outside, there were many more serious injuries than this. Snow Eagle, don't worry. With the physique of the six-armed Naga, this degree of injury will recover in a month or 2. Tong San was very calm. They had walked on the edge of life and death many years ago, so they were used to it. Right, Zhongling, how did you get injured so badly? You brought an entire battalion of soldiers with you. Is the leader of the Bent Blade Union really that powerful? He's very powerful. He's even more powerful than I expected. No wonder he's the strongest bandit in the Water Rights territory. Zhongling said. Who is the leader of the Bent Blade Union? What's his background? Dongbu Shuiying was confused. It's time to talk to you about this. Zhongling said. In the future, the matters of the Snow Eagle territory will be handed over to you. Zhongling looked at Dongbu Shuiying. As a territory lord, you have the right to control your territory. At the same time, you have to protect your territory and all your citizens. Some bandits invaded your territory, slaughtered and pillaged, so you have to kill them. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. When your parents were still alive, your mother was a heaven mage. With a powerful mage, the army could display even greater strength. Moreover, our Snow Eagle territory was also equipped with a large number of star-breaking crossbows. No bandits would dare to offend us in the entire Water Rights County. Zhongling said. After your parents were captured, the bandits were probably watching. They are also very afraid of the star-breaking crossbow. Dongbu Shuiying was very clear about the power of his family's star-shattering crossbows. His father and the rest had been given 500 star-shattering crossbows. Just these star-shattering crossbows alone cost 50,000 gold coins. This was enough to buy the entire Snow Eagle territory. Therefore, in the entire Water Rights County, Snow Eagle territory Dongbu family was still very famous. The Snow Eagle territory's taxes are low, and the people love and respect the leader. In the past few years, the people of the territory have been living a good life, causing many bandits to covet it. Zhongling said. After your parents were captured, they became restless. Finally, the most powerful group of bandits in the entire Water Rights County, the Bent Blade Union, entered our territory and began to plunder. I received news that I led a battalion of 300 soldiers on horseback with star-breaking crossbows to rush over. But by then, more than 500 civilians had already been killed and plundered. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes turned red as he listened. More than 500 people died? These damn bandits. How did those civilians provoke them? When I rushed over to track the bandits, who would have thought that the leader of the Bent Blade Union, the evil leader of the Bent Blade Union, Gu Bin, would hide alone in the slaughtered village and suddenly launch a sneak attack on me? Zhongling sighed. At that time we were caught unprepared. The 300 soldiers were also a bit confused. I could only block him first. The leader of the Bent Blade Union, Gu Bin, is a meteor knight. I have fought with meteor knights in the past, and I can usually block them for a while. Zhongling sighed. But this Gubin's swordsmanship is too fast. Much faster than a normal meteor knight. I guess he must have some special Do Chi method. Dongbu Shuiying also knew. In terms of strength, Uncle Zong was the strongest among his father, Uncle Tong and Uncle Zong. Although he was only a heaven-ranked knight, he was a member of the serpent tribe's royal family. As a six-armed serpent demon, he was very strong. During battle, he could attack with all six of his arms at the same time, and the existence of his serpent tail made him more agile. Therefore, even when fighting with a meteor knight, he could still hold on for a while. My swordsmanship was fast, but he was faster. I couldn't block him and was slashed by him 3 times. Fortunately, I had the protection of the alchemy armor, so I suffered some internal injuries. The 300 soldiers also started to attack with their star-breaking crossbows, forcing the leader of the Bent Blade Union to run away. He even suffered some minor injuries. Zhongling sighed. His swordsmanship is fast, and his body movement is also fast. No wonder he has such a fierce reputation. Dongbu Shuiying felt a lingering fear. Uncle Zong had been slashed 3 times. If he was unlucky, or if the battle had been a little longer, he would have lost his life. Snow Eagle, don't worry. Tong San's voice was powerful. In the entire Water Rights County, there are only 4 meteor knights and 1 meteor mage. Among the bandits, there is only the leader of the Bent Blade Union. This time, the leader of the Bent Blade Union was injured, and after seeing the power of the star-breaking crossbow, he probably won't take the risk again. Because next time we will be more prepared. If the Bent Blade Union doesn't dare to attack, then the other bandits won't dare to. And Dongbu Shuiying sighed in relief. This Gubin is a meteor knight. Of all the things he could do, why did he choose to become a bandit? Dongbu Shuiying said. Humph, Tong San snorted. Snow Eagle, in this world, there are some powerful experts who like to reap without sowing, and like to steal. This Gubin is said to have killed an aristocrat to steal his treasure out of greed. In the end, he was exposed and became a wanted man, so he decided to become a bandit. Zhongling also said in the past, his reputation wasn't good. It's just that no one had any evidence against him. After doing so many evil things, there will be a day when he will be exposed. In the end, he was exposed and became a wanted man. But his strength is strong, and he hides in the mountain range of desolation. He also leads a large group of outlaws. That's why he can be so arrogant until now. Forget it, this isn't something we should worry about. Even if we want to get involved, we can't do anything about it. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. They couldn't do anything about it. Hiding in the mountain range of desolation, the city guards of the empire were also unwilling to attack. One must know that the mountain range of desolation stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles, connecting 4 provinces. It was the largest mountain range in the entire empire, and there were countless terrifying magic beasts living inside. Many outlaws hid in the mountain range of desolation, which was the outermost area of the entire mountain range of desolation. The depths of the mountain range of desolation were too dangerous. I don't care about them now. Wait until I have enough strength, then I will definitely get rid of this tumor. Dongbu Shuiying secretly said. That's right, Snow Eagle, have you thought about the Eternal Wind Academy? Zhongling suddenly said. Snow Eagle. Tong San, who was at the side, also anxiously said. This Eternal Wind Academy is the largest academy in the entire Tranquil Sun Province, and also the most powerful force. It's much stronger than your mother's Emoyang clan. The principal of the Eternal Wind Academy, Eternal Wind Knight Chiqiu Bai, is the strongest person in the entire province. With your strength, you have the confidence to enter this academy. It's already winter. If you don't register now, it will be too late. 10 years old is the final limit. If you exceed 10 years old, the Eternal Wind Academy will not accept you. Zhongling also looked at Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying was silent. He also thought about it for a long time. The Eternal Wind Academy accepts youths under 10 years old, because this age is full of potential for cultivation, especially during the body's puberty period. It is the most crucial period for a knight's training. Some who develop early will start growing at 10 years old. So the Academy's 10 years old age limit is not without reason. The Eternal Wind Academy is the most powerful force in the Tranquil Sun Province. The principal is the most powerful existence in the entire province. The Academy's disciples who enter the Academy are all ordinary youths, and when they graduate, they will at least be a heaven-ranked knight. Many of them will be able to step into the meteor rank, but the admission test is also very strict. Of course, with Dongbo Shuiying's physical condition and spear skills, it is very easy. I have thought about it for a long time, and have already made a decision, Dongbo Shuiying said. Chapter 8. Zhongling and Tong San both looked at Dongbo Shuiying, waiting for his decision. From an emotional point of view, they actually did not want to be separated from Snow Eagle. After all, Eternal Wind Academy was more than 30,000 li away from Snow Eagle's territory. Once they entered the academy, they would have to live in the academy for more than 6 years. Some even stayed for more than 10 years before they were allowed to graduate. How could they bear to be separated for such a long time? These two old men did not have children, and they had a very deep relationship with Dongbo Lai and his wife. In Tong San's heart, Mo Yangyu was his most important master. Zhongling actually had a trace of affection for Mo Yangyu, but it was obvious that Mo Yangyu could not accept a 6-armed serpent demon. In the adventurer group, Mo Yangyu and Dongbo Lai were together. Afterwards, Mo Yangyu became pregnant, and these two old men were very happy. They came together with Snow Eagle. When Snow Eagle was born, they watched Snow Eagle grow up. In their hearts, they treated Snow Eagle as their own child. Were they really going to be separated for a long time? They really could not bear to. But Eternal Wind Academy was the best place in Tranquil Sun Province. It would be a great help to Dongbo Shuiying's growth. I decided not to go, Dongbo Shuiying said. Why not? Zhongling anxiously asked. Why not go? If you want to become a strong knight, Eternal Wind Academy is the best place. We can't go even if we want to. After the new year, you will be 11 years old. At that time, you won't be able to go anymore. Tong Sen also anxiously said. The weak had no future. This was a world of the strong. The rich and powerful nobles all had strong martial strength. You can't bear to part with Shirtu? Zhongling suddenly said. Dongbo Shuiying nodded and said, I really can't bear to part with Shirtu. He is only 4 years old this year, and he is not close to you. He is the one who sticks to me the most. Even now I sleep with him every day. Shirtu doesn't even have any memories of his parents. He only wants me, his older brother. I don't want him to have no parents or older brother in his childhood. Zhongling and Tong San were silent. They could feel the Snow Eagle's love for his little brother. At the very least, I still have my parents until I'm 8 years old. My younger brother is only 4 years old, and he doesn't have any parents or an older brother. I can't do that, Dongbo Shuiying said. Besides, if I want to save my parents, will going to Eternal Wind Academy be of any use? Dongbo Shuiying said. I don't think so. Zhongling and Tong San were puzzled. The Eternal Wind Academy's nurturing is indeed not bad. They are able to nurture large numbers of heaven-ranked knights, and some even become meteor knights. But even if I become a meteor knight, would I be able to save my parents? My uncle is a silver moon mage. He can't do anything about the Emoyang clan's rules. Dongbo Shuiying said. To save my parents, I'm afraid I have to be stronger than uncle. Become a legend knight. He might even become a transcendent. Zhongling and Tong San looked at each other in surprise. They didn't talk about the Emoyang clan in detail, but Dongbo Shuiying deduced that only a legend knight or even a transcendent would be able to save them. This child was indeed smart, because his deduction was correct. Legend knights are extremely rare. Transcendent knights are even more of a legend. I've collected many biographies of transcendent knights. Some of the stories are exaggerated, but their growth is real. Dongbo Shuiying said. I've collated the growth of these transcendent knights. In history, there were 125 transcendent knights. Through their own trials and tribulations, there were 109 who became transcendent. As for the academies, there were only 16. Dongbo Shuiying looked at Zhongling and Tong San. What does this mean? To become a transcendent, the academies are actually the weakest. Zhongling and Tong San were shocked. They had never thought of this point. They only knew that an academy founded by a transcendent knight was definitely a holy land. How great, a large number of heaven-ranked knights, even star-ranked knights. But the majority of the transcendent knights that had been passed down since ancient times had never entered an academy. They were all alone in their trials and tribulations. How could this be? Tong San stared blankly in disbelief. The book is in my study. I've also deliberately ordered people to go to Water Rights Town to collect records of transcendent knights. Dongbo Shuiying said. This is the truth. Although there are a lot of talented people who enter the academy, in the end, it's still very difficult to become a transcendent. I've also carefully researched why this is so. According to the Transcendent Knight Spear Technique book that my father left me, I have a deduction, Dongbo Shuiying said. To become a transcendent, you need to walk your own path. Under the guidance of their teachers, the knights of the student faction had an easier time cultivating in the early stages, allowing them to constantly make breakthroughs. However, when it was time to carve out their own path, without the guidance of their teachers, they would become blind. They don't know how to advance. And those who aren't from the academy don't have systematic guidance. They need to fumble alone. When they meet with a difficulty, they need to think about it and overcome it themselves. Every step is very difficult. But on this path they have their own understanding. This path is walked by themselves, comprehended by themselves. So much so that they can also fumble and step into the transcendent realm. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes were very bright. Very detailed and systematic guidance is very good for training a large number of knights. But to train a true transcendent knight, those detailed teachings will instead become shackles. Wanting to break through these shackles is very difficult. Tong San stared blankly at Dongbo Shuiying and said foolishly, as expected of Master's son, you are so eloquent. Zhongling smiled. I didn't expect that those biographies actually have such a hidden truth. At least I feel that. Your deduction is very reasonable. My deduction might be wrong. But the data can't be wrong. Out of the 125 transcendent knights who left their names in history, 109 did not enter the academy. So I will not enter the academy. Dongbo Shuiying said. Haha, that's because you are aiming high. For many children, becoming a heaven knight is already not bad. Becoming a star knight is already very good. How many would dare to set their goal as high as transcendent knight? Zhongling smiled. In terms of training knights who are below the transcendent realm, the academy is very obviously very helpful. At least a large number of knights are from the academy. Yes. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He agreed with this point. But his goal was even further. Look at those biographies, they will all summarize the data. As expected of Ayu's son, if you become a mage, I'm afraid you will also have a bright future. Zhongling praised. Mages need to analyze the mysteries of heaven and earth. This thinking is very important. Every truly powerful mage is very intelligent. It's a pity that my spiritual energy is not enough. Dongbo Shuiying smiled. I'm not cut out to be a mage. Different from knights. As long as knights train hard and have the determination, everyone, regardless of gender, can fight for it. The requirement for a mage's talent is too high. First of all, the requirement for spiritual energy is very high. Without enough spiritual energy, one would not even be qualified to try. Sure too will be 5 years old after the new year. We can also test his spiritual energy now. Dongbo Shuiying said. Maybe he can reach the threshold now. The earlier one's spiritual energy reaches the threshold, the higher the talent. Generally, if one cannot reach the threshold before the age of 10, then there is no hope. Mother reached the threshold when she was 6 years old. Chapter 9. After dinner, Dongbo Shuiying, Qingshi and Zhongling were gathered together. Dongbo Shuiying took out a watermelon-sized crystal ball from his bag. This was also left behind by his mother. Brother, what is this? So beautiful. Qingshi was pretty and cute. If Dongbo Shuiying's appearance was more like his father's, then his brother's appearance was more like his mother's. One look and you could tell that he would be a handsome young man in the future. And Dongbo Shuiying couldn't be compared to his brother's handsomeness. Come sure, put your hand on it. Dongbo Shuiying said. Okay. Qingshi obediently put his hand on the crystal ball. When his palm touched the crystal ball, the spiritual energy within his body naturally caused a reaction within the crystal ball. The crystal ball immediately emitted a faint red light. The light filled the entire room. Dongbu Ying and the others all revealed a joyful expression. Brother, why is there light? Qing Shi asked curiously. Great mage, come give me a kiss. Dongbu Ying hugged his brother and kissed him happily. Mages and knights were different. Knights needed to start training from a young age. For example, the Eternal Wind Academy set the minimum age limit to 10. But mages were the opposite. They couldn't train at a young age. Those with good family backgrounds would usually start training at 10. Some would even start training at 16, 17, or even 20 years old. The minimum age for Eternal Wind Academy to recruit mages was 30 years old. Before 30 years old, one could enter the academy, because mages had a high requirement of thinking, especially when training involved the soul. If one was too young and messed around, one's soul might be damaged and turn into an idiot. The older one was, the more experience one would have. With the accumulation of time, one could start training at 40 or 50 years old and eventually become a transcendent. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. Hoo. Snow as thick as goose feathers fluttered. A young man wearing a black shirt was standing in front of the railing looking at the snowflakes. His face was as if it was carved by a knife. Years of training gave him an aura that made people's hearts palpitate. This was the aura of a spear expert. Brother! A boy wearing a thick shirt shouted from afar. Qing Shi. Dongbu Ying smiled and leaped down from a height of 6 meters, landing on the snowy ground below. Now that his little brother had grown up, Dongbu Ying had also changed the way he addressed his little brother. He called his little brother by his real name, Qing Shi, instead of his childhood nickname, Stone. Brother, let's go to Waterrights Town to play. There are a lot of fun places in Waterrights Town. It's boring to stay at home. Dongbu Qing Shi said excitedly. Let Uncle Zong accompany you. Dongbu Ying smiled. You're always in the Snow Eagle territory and rarely go to the city. Aren't you bored? Dongbu Qing Shi muttered. Dongbu Ying smiled and did not say anything. The younger brother didn't have much of an impression of his parents anymore. He didn't even remember the night his parents were kidnapped. He lived a carefree life. I'm going to practice my fist technique for a while, Dongbu Ying said. At the same time, he took off his shirt and revealed his upper body. It was not obvious when he was wearing clothes, but when he took it off he could feel his strong body. It was obvious that the many years of training had made his body extremely strong. After saying that, Dongbu Ying stepped on the snow and started to practice the 3-stage flame technique. This was a Do Chi technique and also a fist technique. The snowflakes fell on Dongbu Ying's skin. With every move he could feel his surroundings more clearly. You take your time, I'm going to play. Qing Shi dashed away. Dongbu Ying continued to practice his fist technique in the snow. Every move seemed slow, but the power in his body flowed like water. At the age of 13, his spear technique had already reached the level of one with the spear. But this was still not enough. He still needed to have all the power in his body as one. He needed to be able to control every strand of power with extreme precision. Only then would he be qualified to be called a spear grandmaster. Only then would he be able to master the first stage of mystic ice spear technique, floating snow. He had been practicing his fist technique for the past 2 years to comprehend his body. He wanted to find that spark of inspiration in his body as one. Soon, Dongbu Ying had already faintly touched the threshold of having all the power in his body as one. From the age of 6 until now, when he was 15, he had practiced the spear for almost 10 years. His level of hard work was probably more than a normal person's 20 to 30 years of training. There's no need to worry about my spear technique. But why haven't I produced any Do Chi until now? Dongbu Ying picked up a spear beside him and started to practice his spear technique. The spear and Dongbu Ying seemed to have become one. The spear was like a dragon surging forward. When the spear pierced out, countless spear shadows shrouded the area. The spear swept out with an unstoppable force. According to his estimation, he should have produced Do Chi at the age of 10. He should have become an Earth Knight by the age of 15. But in reality, he was unable to produce Do Chi to become a knight. Dongbu Ying, Zhongling, and Tong San were not disappointed. Instead, they felt that it was strange. Because the principle of Do Chi was to absorb the energy of heaven and earth to nourish the body. When the body reached a certain limit, the body would no longer be able to absorb any more energy. The energy would then be converted into dou qi. When Dongbu Shuiying was 10 years old, his physical strength had already exceeded the limits of an ordinary person. In the following 5 years, his body continued to grow stronger. Because he had been absorbing the energy of heaven and earth, he was unable to produce dou qi. What's the reason? My current body is more than 10 times stronger than an ordinary person, but I'm still absorbing the energy of heaven and earth. Dongbu Shuiying was puzzled. Zhongling and the rest who were experienced and knowledgeable could not understand the reason behind this situation. Bang! The spear suddenly struck the ground, smashing into the stone slabs beneath the snow. Then it rebounded and pierced forward with a terrifying whistling sound. Dongbu Shuiying, who was in the middle of practicing his spear technique, suddenly felt an itch in the deepest part of his body. Dongbu Shuiying hurriedly kept his spear. Every single bone in his body was itching, and every single muscle in his body was itching. This itch was unbearable even with his endurance. Following that, every single part of his body began to heat up, as though he was being burned. His bones felt as though they were being incinerated, and his skin began to turn red. His skin began to toughen, and a layer of tendons began to form beneath his skin. On Dongbu Shuiying's bare upper body, a blood-red aura could be vaguely seen rising up, forming the vague shape of a towering giant. In a daze, Dongbu Shuiying saw a barefooted giant dressed in beast skin roaring with his head raised high on the desolate land. Following that, the blood-red aura dissipated. But the changes within Dongbu Shuiying's body became even more intense. Dongbu Shuiying could no longer suppress the pain. He knelt on the ground and supported himself with both hands. The scorching aura emitted from his body caused the surrounding snow to melt. Chapter 10. A petite maid was walking quickly in the snow with a huge basin of clothes in her hands. Suddenly, she glanced into the distance with a confused look. She could vaguely see a man kneeling in the distance, and there was no snow around him. What's going on? The maid walked toward the man curiously. It's Master. As she got closer, she immediately recognized the man. The man kneeling on the ground was the leader of the Snow Eagle territory. His bare back was slightly red, and he was emitting a scorching aura. Mist was rising from his body, and there was no snow within 10 meters of him. Everything had melted. A powerful magician would be astonished if they saw this. However, the maid was just an ordinary person. How could she understand what it meant when the heat emitted from his body melted the snow within 10 meters of him? Why is the snow melted? Is this what it feels like to have battle aura? The maid thought to herself. She could not help but yell, Master, Master, are you all right? She was a little scared. In the past, when Dongbu Shuiying practiced his spear art, he would sweat profusely. He would even fall to the ground in exhaustion. Therefore, the maid thought her master had become obsessed with the spear art again. I'm fine, Dongbu Shuiying said with a hoarse voice as he slowly rose to his feet. I'm fine. Dongbu Shuiying turned around and glanced at the maid. Very good. The maid did not dare to make a sound. Relay my order, go to the kitchen and make the arrangements. I want to roast an entire magical beast and bring it to me, Dongbu Shuiying ordered. An entire magical beast? The maid's eyes widened. It had to be known that a normal horse would weigh 700 to 800 kilograms. A flying frost magical beast colt could even weigh 1,000 kilograms. Some magical beasts were even thicker, weighing a few thousand kilograms, or even over 10,000 kilograms. Inside the castle, people like Dongbu Shuiying ate magical beast meat every day. The meat contained more energy, and the knights in the castle ate it too. That was why there would always be 1 or 2 magical beasts in the castle's cold storage, but that was to supply the entire castle, and it would usually take a few days. Yes, an entire one. I remember last time I went there was a Class 3 magical beast and a Class 2 magical beast. Roast the Class 3 magical beast and bring it over, Dongbu Shuiying ordered. Yes. The little maid obediently went to relay the order. Dongbu Shuiying watched as the little maid carried the large wooden basin and dashed away. He smiled and walked to the side to pick up his clothes and put them on. He was still that valiant-looking young man. But other than himself, no one knew how terrifying his body had become. Let's see how high you can jump. Dong Shuang looked at the main building of the castle that he was staying in. The castle was very majestic, and the railing on the second floor was about 7 to 8 meters high. If he tried to jump over it, he would only be able to grab hold of the railing and climb over it. Hua! Exerting force on his legs, so just like a phantom, he suddenly soared into the sky, directly rushing to the highest point of the castle. Only after reaching the height of the entire castle did he descend, scaring Shuang so much that he jumped. At this moment, because of the heavy snow, no one noticed this short scene. I can actually jump so high. The main building of the castle is more than 20 meters high. I remember that although the walls of Waterrights Town are very tall, they are only 18 meters high. I can easily jump over the walls of Waterrights Town with a single jump? Dong Shuang was a little shocked. From the height he jumped, Dong Shuang had already begun to vaguely understand the level of his strength. Dong Shuang quickly came down from the roof and went to the dining hall to wait for the roast meat. Because he was really hungry. Ever since he was young, he had never been this hungry. Although Dong Shuang was very excited about the increase in his strength, the reason why he ordered the roast meat was because the hunger was driving him crazy. Kachagu! Dong Shuang picked up the fruits and some pastries on the dining table and swallowed them in 2 or 3 bites. Now that his stomach had evolved, it was able to digest and absorb the food in an instant, but the amount of energy it contained was really pitiful. Master! A bearded male servant rushed over and entered the dining hall. His rough voice sounded, "Master wants an entire roast magical beast, and also that rank 3 magical beast?" "Yes." Dong Shuang glanced at him. "Do it as fast as possible. Once it's cooked, quickly bring it over." Understood. The bearded male servant jumped in fright and hurriedly did as he was told. Usually, if the Lord sent someone to give an order as a head chef, he wouldn't dare to say a word. But this time the order was somewhat unimaginable. An entire rank 3 magical beast was equivalent to 6,000 caddies of magical beast meat. It was worth a lot. Furthermore, the person who came to pass the order wasn't the Lord's personal servant, but a young female servant who was doing the laundry. That was why the head chef came to ask about it. Otherwise, if the female servant lied, even though the female servant would be in trouble, with the value of a rank 3 magical beast, this head chef would probably be heavily punished. The Lord wants to roast an entire magical beast. Isn't that too wasteful? The bearded chef thought to himself, but he didn't dare to ask. How could he question the Lord's order? All he had to do was follow the order. Dong Shuang waited, suppressing the hunger that made his whole body tremble. Finally, he smelled the aroma of roast meat. South. In an instant, Dong Shuang dashed out of the dining hall and stood in front of the railing, looking down. A horse carriage was moving forward slowly, with a group of male servants following by the side. Within the carriage was the completely roasted magical beast meat that had been cut into 2 pieces. 6,000 caddies of magical beast meat. This was the pure weight of the magical beast after the lungs were pulled out and the blood was removed. These ordinary servants wouldn't be able to move it. In order to roast the meat, the group of servants had expended a lot of energy, and it was very troublesome to transport it over. In a while, we will have to send it to Master's dining hall. Everyone will have to put in a lot of effort. Let's work together and bring it up together. The male servants were still discussing. It wasn't easy to send over 10,000 caddies of food to the second floor. Pung! Suddenly the ground shook. A young man dressed in black was standing in front of the carriage. "Master!" The muscular male servants were stunned for a moment before they greeted him respectfully. "All right, leave this magical beast meat to me. All of you can go back to your work." As he spoke, Dong Shuang picked up the huge plate in the carriage. On the plate was the magical beast meat that had been roasted into 2 pieces. Carrying the plate that was even bigger than his body, Dong Shuang quickly walked towards the dining hall. The group of male servants by the side were all stunned. Heavens! Carried it away just like that? That was 6,000 caddies of magical beast meat. Even if some of the oil had been burnt off during the roasting process, it should still be more than 10,000 caddies. Even if the group of muscular male servants worked together, they would still have to drag it up to the second floor. Carried it away just like that? Just how much strength did he have? Don't gossip outside. Dongbu Shuang glanced downwards and instructed. Yes, the male servants acknowledged. But Dongbu Shuang understood that the news of him taking out an entire magical beast meat in one go would still spread. Even if it spread, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, it was very normal for the rich and powerful clans to do some extravagant things. The more extravagant they were, the more the nobles would feel that their clans were powerful. Without that confidence, who would dare to be extravagant? As for carrying over 10,000 caddies of magical beast meat, it wasn't a big deal. He had to display his strength eventually. Master is actually able to carry over 10,000 caddies of magical beast meat. He should be a heaven-ranked knight, right? Maybe. A 15-year-old heaven-ranked knight. After the new year, he will only be 16. Truly amazing. Humph, all of you only see how powerful Master is now. But you don't know that Master is training crazily every day. I heard from the servants in the training field that they feel terrified just by looking at him. The male servants muttered amongst themselves. Clang! The huge plate was placed on the dining table, causing the table to shake. Bang! Dongbu Shuang immediately closed the dining hall's door. The servants all thought that their master was just being extravagant and wasteful. But in reality, Dongbu Shuang really wanted to eat it. Come on! Dongbu Shuang picked up the knife at the side. Shwa shwa shwa. He cut open a piece of meat that weighed over 10 caddies and started eating it in big mouthfuls. Kacha kacha. Very soon, even the bones were completely chewed and swallowed into his stomach. His body cheered as it frantically digested and absorbed the energy. His incomparably hungry body that lacked energy was constantly digesting and absorbing energy. Eat, eat, eat. Dongbu Shuang ate very quickly. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the meat on the magical beast that was glowing with golden oil was constantly decreasing. The small bones were all eaten clean, leaving only a few thick bones. Oh, Snow Eagle, how can you be so extravagant and wasteful? Lion Man Tong San's vigorous voice carried a trace of anger. In the entire castle, only Tong San and Zhongling dared to say a few words about Dongbu Shuang. Hua! Lion Man Tong San angrily pushed open the hall's door. But then he was dumbfounded. On the huge plate, there was only a huge magical beast skeleton left. Some of the small bones were gone, leaving only the most basic big bones. The magical beast's meat had all disappeared. Dongbu Shuang had already wiped it clean. He sat at the side and smiled. Uncle Tong, I did not waste it. Chapter 11. You. Lion Man Tong San looked at the remaining big skeleton of the magical beast in disbelief. Snow Eagle, did you cut off the magical beast meat and hide it? Where did you hide it? Then Tong San began to look around the dining room, even kneeling on the ground to look under the table, under the cabinet and other places. Uncle Tong, I really ate it. Dongbu Shuang said helplessly. You ate it? More than 10,000 pounds of meat, you're still so young, you ate it? Tong San stared at him with his lion eyes wide open. How can I believe you? Not to mention you, even a titled knight can't eat more than 10,000 pounds of meat in one meal. Dongbu Shuang was helpless. It was also because of this transition in life that every cell in his body was extremely hungry, which was why he needed to eat so much. In the future, even if he were to eat more, he wouldn't be able to eat it. Uncle Tong, look. Dongbu Shuang picked up a silver plate next to him and suddenly pressed down with both hands. The silver plate was quickly pressed down and his hands clasped together twice. A silver metal ball appeared in his palm. This, Tong San was dumbfounded. Dongbu Shuang grabbed the metal ball with his right hand and exerted more force. The silver metal slowly flowed out from the gaps between his fingers. Then Dongbu Shuang clasped his hands together and rubbed it a few times, turning it into a silver metal stick. How did you do it? Tong San couldn't believe it. He and Zhongling couldn't do it. If he used force, he could crush the silver plate with one palm and deform the metal ball. But to be able to squeeze the metal ball out of the gaps between his fingers like Dongbu Shuang, and even rub his hands, turning it into a metal stick, this was too abnormal. I said that magical beast meat was indeed eaten by me. Dongbu Shuang said helplessly. Now Uncle Tong, do you believe me? I believe you, I believe you. I'll believe whatever you say now. What happened? How did you suddenly become so strong? This is simply. I can't figure it out. Tong San's head was full of fog. This increase in strength was step by step, from a human rank knight to an earth rank knight, from an earth rank knight to a heaven rank knight, from a heaven rank knight to a meteor rank. You haven't even cultivated Do Qi, and you're not even a human knight. How could you? Tong San found it hard to understand. Now it is. Dongbua Shuiying stood up. Uncle Tong, wait for me for a while. With that said, Dongbua Shuiying started practicing his fist technique in the spacious dining hall. Every move he made was as smooth as flowing water. Strength surged through his entire body, and the energy of heaven and earth surged into his body. Every muscle in his body began to produce a mysterious energy. This was Do Qi. In fact, after eating all the magical beast meat, his body had already begun to produce some Do Qi. Hua hua hua. As Dongbua Shuiying practiced the three-stage flame technique, the amount of Do Qi in his body increased. Do Qi began to appear in his muscles and bones, and even his skin and tendons. The mysterious energy of heaven and earth continued to pour into his body, and was continuously transformed into Do Qi. His body was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the energy of heaven and earth. Over and over again, he practiced the Do Qi technique. At first, Tong San was confused, shocked, and puzzled. But after an hour, he gradually calmed down. But after 2 hours, he began to feel helpless. Why are you still practicing? How long do I have to practice for? Tong San looked at Dongbua Shuiying in confusion. One must know that the more Do Qi technique practiced, the better it would be. Before becoming a knight, practicing 2 or 3 times at a time was enough, as the body would not be able to absorb any more. And after becoming a knight, the growth of Do Qi was very slow. There was a limit to how much Do Qi could be absorbed every day, so the number of times he could practice was also very limited. For example, Dongbua Shuiying had already practiced for more than 4 hours, which was very abnormal. Rumble. Dongbua Shuiying felt that every part of his body was surging with Do Qi. Finally, he could no longer absorb the energy of heaven and earth. I didn't expect that I would become an earth-ranked knight the moment I broke through. Dongbua Shuiying thought to himself, of course my Do Qi is that of an earth-ranked knight, but my strength is far beyond the scope of an earth-ranked knight. According to the normal path, once the body produces the first strand of Do Qi, one would be considered a human-ranked knight. Then the Do Qi would nourish the muscles and bones, causing the nourished areas to gradually produce Do Qi. More and more places would produce Do Qi, and when the Do Qi would cover the entire body, bones, and muscles, one would be an earth-ranked knight. The entire body would be filled with Do Qi, and the Do Qi would condense into a Do Qi source in the abdomen, the Dantian Qi Si. This was a heaven-ranked knight. When the Do Qi and the Dantian's Qi Si condensed into a liquid state, one would be a meteor knight. After the liquid state, the Do Qi would undergo a qualitative change. It would no longer be as hard and fierce as before, but could be both hard and soft at the same time. The Do Qi that was both hard and soft could even form a tough layer of Do Qi on the surface of the body. This was also the reason why meteor knights could ignore countless arrows. The Do Qi's defense was extremely high, and at the same time, the liquid Do Qi could nourish and strengthen the body. When the liquid Do Qi condensed again, it would become even more mystical and powerful. Because it was extremely soft, it could even penetrate into the soft internal organs and undergo a deeper transformation of the body. This was also a silver moon knight. As for a heaven-ranked knight, one had to reach the realm of one with the world. At that time, by borrowing the energy of heaven and earth, one could step into the legend rank. A legend rank was completely above a silver moon rank. The difference was extremely shocking. A legend rank could kill a silver moon rank in a single move. The legend rank represented the limits of mortals. Some of the more abnormal ones could even fight against transcendence and survive. They were only one step away from becoming transcendence. My body's muscles and bones are all perfect. Therefore, I don't need to slowly nourish them. I can immediately become an earth-ranked knight. Dongbua Shuiying thought to himself. The next step is to open the Do Qi source. I need to slowly accumulate enough Do Qi. Snow eagle, snow eagle. Seeing that Dongbua Shuiying had stopped, Tong San immediately shouted, "Aha, Uncle Tong, follow me." Dongbua Shuiying laughed happily. After saying that, he left the dining hall and jumped down the main building. Tongsen also hurriedly jumped down. Very quickly, the two arrived at the martial arts field. At this moment, there were no servants in the martial arts field. Snow Eagle, why did you come to the martial arts field? Tongsan was somewhat puzzled. Don't be anxious, Uncle Tong, Dongbu Shuang said as he walked to the side and picked up a spear that he usually used. This spear weighed at least 50 kilograms and could be considered as the best spear in the entire Snowrock Castle. Dongbu Shuang held the spear in his hand and stared at the refiner dummy in front of him. Tongsan, who was standing at the side, also held his breath. He understood that his nephew wanted to show off his strength. He wanted to see, with Snow Eagle's current strength, how far could his spear arts reach. Shua! The spear moved and turned into a mirage. The spear landed on the refiner dummy, and the dummy let out a series of poo-yu sounds. In just a short moment, Dongbu Shuang withdrew his spear. So fast, Snow Eagle, your spear arts are so fast that I can't even block them. Tongsan was shocked by the speed of Dongbu Shuang's spear arts. He then looked at the refiner dummy, and his eyes widened. The refiner dummy's body was densely packed with holes, and the large number of holes formed 3 words, amazing. You can pierce holes in its body? Tongsan stared. This refiner dummy, anyone below the star rank would not be able to harm it at all. Let me show you something even more amazing. Dongbu Shuang suddenly erupted the hidden power within his body. His body was surrounded by a faint red air current, and a fierce aura soared into the sky, causing Tongsan to feel fear. Dongbu Shuang waved the spear in his hand, and the spear in his hand struck the refiner dummy. The spear's shaft bent into a very exaggerated arc. Bang! The first loud sound was heard, and the refiner dummy trembled and cracks appeared. Bang! The second loud sound was heard, and the refiner dummy's body was directly smashed into pieces, and only its lower body remained on the ground. Bang! The third loud sound was heard, and the spear struck the foundation of the refiner dummy. Bang! The spear was completely broken, and the lower body of the refiner dummy was also smashed into pieces. Dongbu Shuang looked at the broken spear in his hand, and was stunned. He had used this spear for a long time, and he didn't expect it to be broken. Big brother, I'm back. Qing Shi's crisp voice came from afar. Dongbu Shuang raised his head and looked at the sky, and it was already dark. Uncle Tong, Qing Shi and Uncle Zong are also back. Let's go and have dinner first. After dinner, I will tell you and Uncle Zong everything. Dongbu Shuang laughed. If it was someone else who encountered this kind of thing, they would probably be confused. Fortunately, he had read enough books and there was a very simple record of it. Chapter 12. Okay. Lion Man Tongsan could only restrain his curiosity. Anyway, he would know after dinner. He still had this bit of patience. Brother, I'm back. Qing Shi and Zhong Ling rode on a frost pony and brought a group of cavalry back, showing off their might. Water Rights Town was, after all, the lowest level of a county-level city in the entire empire. Within the borders of Water Rights Town, the Dongbo clan of Snow Eagle territory was one of the top 10 clans. Therefore, every time Qing Shi went to Water Rights Town to play, he would do so with great fanfare. Dongbu Shuang was happy to see his brother live a happy life every day. After dinner, Qing Shi was tired after playing all day and quickly went to bed. Dongbu Shuang, Zhongling, and Tongsan all came to the study. What are you doing in Snow Eagle's study? Tongsan, why do you have such an excited expression? What happened? Zhongling was still confused. Shuang was grinning from ear to ear as he walked over to the bookshelf to search for the book he had previously read. Let me tell you. Tongsan took a deep breath. Today, Shuang roasted that ranked 3 magical beasts that weighed over 10,000 kilograms. Then he ate it all by himself. Zhongling stared. One person ate more than 10,000 jin of meat? Was it a human? Was it a dragon? With his current strength, I'm afraid he can defeat you and me in one move. Tongsan continued. You can go take a look at the practice field's alchemy dummy. It was smashed into pieces by Snow Eagle's spear 3 times. Even Snow Eagle's spear couldn't withstand the force and broke. What? Zhongling was shocked. Snow Eagle's spear weighed 50 jin and was also refined by an alchemy master. Although it was not a ranked weapon, it was more than enough for a heaven-ranked knight to use. Moreover, the spear itself was good at accumulating force. To break the spear? How much strength would that require? What exactly is going on? Zhongling asked. I also want to know, but Snow Eagle said that he will tell both of us. Tong San looked at Snow Eagle. Zhongling also looked at him. Dongbo Shuang flipped through the books on the shelves, and found the book in no time at all. He flipped through the pages and found the page that he had read before. Using his finger, he drew a line on the page and smiled as he passed the book to Zhongling. Uncle Zhong, Uncle Tong, this is the only book. Take a look at this paragraph and you'll understand. Oh. Zhongling curiously took it. Tong Sen also stretched out his head to look. Zhongling first looked at the cover of the book. This was the name of the book, The Woodcutter Knight. It's him, the Woodcutter Knight? Zhongling and Tong San were slightly startled. Although the two of them did not read much, they had heard many legends during their adventures. Among them, the story of the Woodcutter Knight was very widespread. This Woodcutter Knight was a knight from 50 years ago. The reason why he was so famous was because he was very strong. He was once a woodcutter from a mountain village. Later on, he embarked on the path of a knight. When he was a legend ranker, he killed a transcendent with one swing of his axe. When he was a transcendent, he was even more invincible among transcendents. His title was Woodcutter, and this was chosen by him. He was honored as the strongest transcendent of that era. His strength was because no transcendent could withstand a few blows from his axe. It was that terrifying. Take a look at that paragraph first. Dongbo Shuang laughed. During his childhood, he had worshipped this woodcutter knight for a very long time because he was too domineering. He loved to chop wood, and he used his enemies as firewood. Whether it was a dragon or a demon, he chopped them all the same. And Zhongling turned back to look at the paragraph, and Tong Sen also stared at it. That's right, the Woodcutter Knight awakened the legendary Great Axe bloodline hidden within his body at this moment. The author needs to explain here. All humans, including you and me, actually have countless bloodlines hidden within our bodies. When the entire Empire's plane of existence was born, there was no life in the entire plane. At that time, the environment of the plane of existence was extremely harsh. Gradually, after a long period of nurturing, the plane of existence finally gave birth to a group of powerful life forms. They were the earliest life forms of the immemorial era. Each of them had the terrifying strength to move mountains and fill the seas. They carried a huge mountain and ran around, killing a dragon to drink its blood and eat its meat. In front of them, the dragon was very weak, and even the gods from outside the plane did not dare to descend. These powerful life forms continuously reproduced, and eventually humans were born. Therefore, within every human's body, there is the bloodline of these immemorial era life forms. Furthermore, in the long years that followed, the gods also descended and left behind their descendants among the humans. As humans continuously reproduced, I'm afraid that if you trace back 10,000 years, you would be able to trace your bloodline back to the same bloodline. Every human has the bloodline of these immemorial era life forms and gods. Of course, it is extremely thin strands. The bloodline of direct descendants is even more powerful. For example, after the founding emperor of our Dragon Mountain Empire, the Dragon Mountain Emperor became a god. He had a son, the legendary 12th prince. He was born a transcendent life form. Because his father was an extremely powerful god, the bloodline in his body allowed him to be born a transcendent life form. The immemorial era, the ancient era, the ancient era. Until now, we are only mortals. The bloodlines of those powerful life forms are too thin, too thin. However, there are occasionally people who awaken the immemorial era bloodline. Some have the Great Axe bloodline, some have the Divine Archer bloodline, some have the bloodline that is good at running. Some can teleport, some can control lightning, some are said to be able to transform, and some are almost immortal. However, according to the author's statistics, those who awaken the immemorial era bloodline at first amaze everyone with a single brilliant feat. Afterwards they become ordinary, and it is almost impossible for them to step into the transcendent realm. The reason why I admire the Woodcutter Knight is because he calmly looked at his bloodline, and finally became the strongest transcendent of that era. After the Woodcutter Knight awakened the immemorial era bloodline Great Axe bloodline, he met the most important woman in his life. As for the details, please listen to the author carefully. In the entire thick biography, there was only this paragraph about the immemorial era bloodline. What followed was the legendary life of the woodcutter knight. Immemorial era bloodline? Zhongling and Tongsan looked at Dongbo Shuiying. Yes, I should be the one who awakened the immemorial era bloodline, Dongbo Shuiying said. What bloodline? Zhongling asked curiously. Do you know how to teleport? Tongsan was even more excited. Let's try controlling lightning? Let's try using fire? I don't know how. Dongbo Shuiying said helplessly. There were many types of immemorial era bloodlines. After all, there was a group of immemorial lifeforms that were born in the earliest days of the world, and the one that he awakened was relatively ordinary. This book says that the immemorial era bloodline has some special abilities? Zhongling asked. Actually, the special abilities are very demanding. Dongbo Shuiying said. My special ability is only one. Doubling my strength. Doubling. Zhongling and Tongsan's hearts were burning with excitement. They also wanted to have it. Which knight did not want to double their strength? Although there were no special abilities like teleportation or ever-changing forms, the doubling of strength was still very practical. However, once I activate the explosive power, my stamina will also be consumed quickly. Dongbo Shuiying said, normally, I would not be tired even if I fight for an hour. However, once I put my life on the line, I am afraid that I will be completely exhausted. Therefore, the time that I can fight for my life is very limited. How is your current strength? Zhongling asked curiously. In a normal battle, I estimate the strength of a meteor knight. Dongbo Shuiying said. Then wouldn't doubling my strength make me a silver moon knight? Zhongling and Tongsan were very excited. It's just that my strength has increased, but my speed is a notch lower than a silver moon knight. Moreover, the duration is also very short. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. Even so, you are currently the strongest person in the entire Water Rights town. Zhongling was looking forward to it. Haha, like I said, Snow Eagle, you are so diligent. You have been practicing your spear arts for almost 10 years, but you still did not produce any do qi. This is obviously not normal. Sure enough, when it explodes it is amazing. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. Actually, Dongbo Shuiying had his own thoughts about this awakening. Every human had a hidden immemorial bloodline. After many generations of reproduction, everyone's immemorial bloodline was very thin. Why were some people able to awaken it? Dongbo Shuiying did not have many examples to refer to, but from the Firewood Knight, he could see that this was a guy who loved chopping wood. He had always loved chopping wood. And in the end he awakened the huge axe bloodline. While practicing his spear arts, he had squeezed the strength of his arms and fingers to the limit every day. He had to soak in a medicinal bath to recover. Maybe this was the reason why he awakened the immemorial bloodline. Dongbo Shuiying did not know who the lofty roaring giant that he saw when he awakened was. So he simply called his immemorial bloodline immemorial bloodline. This is just the beginning. Dongbo Shuiying said, just like an ordinary person's body, it grows under the nourishment of do qi. I can feel that my body is becoming stronger under the nourishment of do qi. Ha ha ha. Zhongling and Tongsan both laughed. They were too happy today. Originally, they thought that the vow made by the young child was only a child's desire. At that time, no one present believed that Dongbo Shuiying could really save his parents, because it was too difficult. But today the two of them saw hope. That's right, from today onwards, I don't need to soak in a medicinal bath anymore. Shuiying laughed. Even though my body can't be considered undying, my recovery ability is much stronger than that of a medicinal bath. As he said that, Dongbo Shuiying picked up a carving knife from the table and made a cut on his palm. If he were to soak in a medicinal bath, he would be able to recover completely by the next day. But at this moment, the wound on his palm was rapidly healing. In just a breath's time, the wound had completely disappeared. Actually, the stronger the body, the more shocking the recovery rate. For example, the internal organs of a silver moon knight would transform under the nourishment of do qi. Their body's recovery rate would be very shocking. A legend knight's body could be cleansed by the power of heaven and earth, which made them almost immortal. It was even more exaggerated than Dongbo Shuiying's. Although it was said that a legend knight could be exhausted to death by mortals, it was only theoretically possible. After all, the price was too high. If a large army were to be sent out, a legend knight would have escaped long ago. To kill a legend knight, it would usually be a legend ranker or a transcendent. Oh, there is one more important thing. In 2 days, I am preparing to go to Water Rights Town, Dongbu Shuiying suddenly said. Chapter 13. Going to Water Rights Town? Zhongling and Tong San were still in a state of excitement. Hearing Dongbu Shuiying's words, they couldn't help but stare blankly. In the past, Dongbu Shuiying had been very diligent in his cultivation, and it was rare for him to go to Water Rights Town once a year. Snow Eagle, are you going to buy a weapon? Zhongling suddenly asked. Dongbu Shuiying was slightly startled, then laughed. Uncle Zong, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. I really should buy a spear. This time, I plan to go to Water Rights Town, because it's almost the new year. After the new year, Qing Shi will be 10 years old. He can't always play like this. I have already promised him that when he is 10 years old, I will find him a good mage teacher and let him officially start learning. Yes, a mage's teacher is very important. Zhongling and Tong San were very serious. Mages are knowledgeable and wise. Without a good teacher, it is very difficult to become a knowledgeable and wise mage by relying on oneself. Not to mention the fact that the advancement of a mage involves the soul. If one were to randomly train and hurt their soul, it would be too late for regrets. In the entire Water Rights Town, there is only one star mage, Bai Yuanji. Dongbu Shuiying said. Master Bai Yuanji is currently living in the town. I am going to visit him and hope that he will accept my brother as his direct disciple. Direct disciple? Zhongling said worriedly. I am afraid that will be difficult. A mage's teaching is about knowledge, thinking and all aspects of knowledge. The relationship between a mage and a direct disciple is like that between parents and children. Therefore, the more powerful a mage is, they would rather accept a disciple in name. How much you achieve depends on yourself. As for the direct disciple, a powerful mage will only accept a few in their lifetime. This is because mages also need time to train, and accepting too many direct disciples will delay their training. How will you know if you don't try? Dongbu Shuiying laughed. 2 days later. After all, he was an expert that was almost at the level of a spear master. Although his strength had increased after 2 days, Dongbu Shuiying was completely familiar with it. He brought his brother, Zhongling, and a team of 100 cavalrymen to Water Rights Town. It's been a long time since I went to the city with my brother. Qing Shi was very excited. Dongbu Shuiying rode on the frost pony, while Qing Shi sat in Dongbu Shuiying's embrace excitedly. As a second-ranked magical beast, the frost pony's galloping was extremely stable. Furthermore, its current speed could only be considered the speed of a frost pony. After all, they had to let the cavalry behind them catch up. If they let the frost pony gallop wildly, they might disappear in the blink of an eye. In less than an hour, a majestic city appeared in front of them. The castle was only 100 miles away from Water Rights Town. When his parents chose their territory, they chose a territory close to the city. The edge of Snow Eagle's territory was already at the foot of the city. It's Snow Eagle's cavalry. When the guards of Water Rights Town saw a group of cavalrymen rushing towards them, they immediately held their breaths. The insignia on the armor of the cavalrymen was Snow Eagle spreading its wings. They immediately recognized the identity of the cavalrymen. Furthermore, every one of the cavalry was carrying a Starbreaker crossbow, which was unique to Snow Eagle territory. The one at the front is the young lord of Snow Eagle territory. In his arms is his brother, young Master Qing Shi. I didn't think that the young lord would actually enter the city. It's rare for him to come. His brother comes often. In the past month, I've seen young Master Qing Shi quite a few times. The city guards chatted with each other as they stood on both sides, allowing the cavalry to enter the city. The empire had been established for more than 9,000 years. The lowest-ranking city guards had long since rotted away. They could only intimidate some of the smaller bandits. Big nobles and some of the more powerful bandits were people they didn't dare to provoke. It's the young lord of Snow Eagle territory. Make way! Make way! The people in the city watched curiously. Everyone moved away from them. Water Rights Town was one of the top 10 clans. Moreover, the lord of this generation was personally coming out. This was a big scene. Shuming General Goods Store. A large store was very eye-catching. Right here. Nay. Dongbu Shuang stopped his horse and immediately ordered, "Wait for me outside." "Yes, my lord." The soldiers respectfully replied. "Uncle Zong, let's go in." Dongbu Shuang handed the horse over to one of his subordinates. Then, holding his brother's hand, they entered the store together. Although it was called a general goods store, the store itself was nearly 100 meters wide. There were also dozens of clerks and a lot of customers. This was the biggest and best place to sell weapons in Water Rights Town. Water Rights Town is only a county town. Not many people can afford to buy a good alchemy weapon. Zhongling said with a smile, "A rank 2 alchemy weapon costs tens of thousands of gold coins. It's equivalent to the price of the entire Snow Eagle territory. How many nobles in Water Rights Town can afford to buy one? Even if they want to buy one, they would have to go to the county town or even the provincial town. That's why most of the weapons here aren't ranked. Tier 1 alchemy weapons are usually the best, and there might be some Tier 2 alchemy weapons as the shop's treasures." Dongbu Shuang slightly nodded. The spear that he had used before was not ranked. This must be the legendary Snow Eagle territory's Dongbu Shuang. "Haha, I've long heard of brother's name, but it's my first time seeing you." A middle-aged man wearing a purple robe walked out with a smile. "Snow Eagle territory, this is the owner of the store, Earl Quan Shuang." Zhongling introduced. "Greetings, Earl Quan." Dongbu Shuang said with a smile. There were only a few powerful people in Water Rights Town, and Quan Shuang was one of them. This person used to be a big merchant. His business was very big outside. Later, he didn't want to run around anymore, so he returned to his hometown and bought a piece of land. He opened a grocery store in the city. Although it was called a grocery store, it had all kinds of rare treasures and weapons, but it was the best in the whole of Water Rights Town. From the number of treasures, one could see that it was quite powerful. "I'll be arrogant and call you Brother Snow Eagle," the purple-robed middle-aged man said with a smile. "Brother, what do you want to buy?" "A spear," Dongbu Shuang said. "Earl Quan, take out your best spear." Zhongling said. "Yes, the best, take out all of the best." Qing Shi said excitedly. "Haha. Good spirit. However, my store is only a small store, and I only have 3 good spears." The purple-robed middle-aged man's heart slightly moved after hearing this. Generally speaking, weak people didn't need to use high-ranked alchemy weapons. It seemed that this young lord was quite powerful. Perhaps he had already become a heaven knight. He immediately turned his head and ordered, "Go, take out the 3 best spears for Brother Snow Eagle to choose from. Brother Snow Eagle, let's go inside and sit down. We can talk slowly." Many customers in the store had already noticed Dongbu Shuang, and were quietly talking about him. After all, although Dongbu Shuang rarely entered the city, his name had already been discussed by the people of Water Rights Town many times. At the age of 8, he became the lord of a territory. It was said that he practiced his spear art every day and was possessed by it. It was said that his parents were captured, and some said that they were killed. There were all kinds of rumors, and some of them were very fake. Inside the private room, tea and pastries were served, and they chatted for a while. 6 maids, 2 of them were carrying a weapon box. A total of 3 simple and unadorned weapon boxes were carried into the room. "Open them all, let Brother Snow Eagle have a look," the purple-robed middle-aged man ordered. Bang bang bang. The 3 weapon boxes were opened. Dongbu Shuang's eyes immediately lit up, and he looked carefully. Chapter 14. The purple-robed man saw Dongbu Shuang's expression and secretly nodded his head. The people of Water Rights Town had even given Dongbu Shuang a nickname, Spear Demon, meaning that he had become obsessed with the spear. Actually, this could not be considered too malicious, but it could not be considered good either. However, the purple-robed man had a lot of experience and understood that the outside world was vast. The true rulers were the strong ones, the unimaginably powerful legend rankers, and even the transcendents. Only those who were truly diligent in their training would have the hope of becoming such existences. Therefore, he was not willing to offend these extremely diligent people. Good spears. Dongbu Shuang swept his gaze across. Just from the faint aura emitted by these spears, he could feel the spirituality of these spears. This was a feeling of resonance that came naturally from being with these spears for a long time. The 3 spears were all split into 2. After all, the spears were too long. If they were split into 2, they could be carried around in a weapon box. If it were a whole spear, it would be at least 2 meters long, which would be too cumbersome. Brother Snow Eagle, let me introduce to you. These 3 spears were personally purchased by me. The purple-robed man said. Then I will have to trouble Earl Quan. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head slightly. He was too lazy to pay attention to the ways of the world. His mind was more focused on his training. Of course, he would not be too rude. This is a black spear. The purple-robed man pointed at the spear in the first weapon box on his left. It is called Black Cloud. This spear is 3.2 meters long and is considered to be one of the best-selling spears in the outside world. Many nobles are willing to buy it. Brother Snow Eagle, you will know its benefits after you try it. Oh. Dongbu Shuang frowned slightly. This spear was too long, which he did not like. He immediately stepped forward and picked up the 2 halves of the spear with both hands. He quickly rotated the 2 halves of the spear and jammed them together. Who? With a swing of one hand, he threw out a spear. Dongbu Shuang swung the spear that weighed over 100 jin with a single hand. The tip of the spear pierced through the air, causing the faces of the 2 maidservants to turn pale with fright. The purple-robed middle-aged man was secretly shocked. What great strength! What a powerful spear technique! Soft, too soft. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. This black cloud spear is too long, and its neck is too thin. As a result, when the spear pierces through, the spearhead will dance. But in fact, even a true expert would like to brandish his spear. However, the dance of the spearhead had to be completely controlled. It's not because the gun is too soft that it's dancing. Of course, for those who are not proficient in spear arts, if they were to suddenly stab out with a 3-meter-long spear, the spearhead would dance about. Most people would be dazzled by it and would not be able to see it clearly. In an instant, they would be pierced through. It's a good weapon for those nobles who don't put in the effort to practice their spears. Dongbu Shuang casually commented. At the age of 13, Dongbu Shuang had achieved one with the spear. Now that he had reached the level of a great spear master, he was able to understand the strengths and weaknesses of this weapon with just a casual try. This black cloud spear was a good weapon for those who were weak in spear arts. It could greatly increase their strength. But for those who were skilled in spear arts, they would not be interested in it. Amazing, amazing. Haha, I've met some true experts who are out adventuring. Even they would look down on this black cloud spear that is favored by the nobles. The purple-robed middle-aged man pointed to another dark purple spear at the side. This spear is called the purple blood spear. It's used by true experts. The spear is 2.5 meters long, and the spear shaft is thick enough to be held with one hand. The spear tip is extremely sharp, and it's specially made for killing. It's said that the dark purple color of the spear shaft is the color of fresh blood. That's a pretty incredible boast. Dongbu Shuang smiled as he picked up the purple blood spear. The moment he picked it up, Dongbu Shuang was slightly delighted. He then casually waved the spear. Whoosh! The spear swept out, and a gust of wind suddenly appeared in the spacious room. Then the spear spun and in an instant it turned into an angry stab. Dongbu Shuang's casual movements were not something that an ordinary spear expert could possess. This made the purple-robed middle-aged man's evaluation of Dongbu Shuang rise higher and higher. The strength conversion is very easy. Dongbu Shuang nodded slightly. There are no flaws on the spear shaft. With the help of the alchemy array, the spear tip is indeed very sharp. This was a good spear, and it was suitable for him. Let me introduce the last spear. The purple-robed middle-aged man pointed to the last spear. Dongbu Shuang looked over as well. This was the spear that he liked the most. The entire spear shaft was silver in color, and there were countless snowflake-like dots on the spear shaft. This allowed Dongbu Shuang to faintly feel the sharpness of the spear. The other 2 spears are rank 1 alchemy weapons, but this one is something that I obtained by chance. According to the appraisal, it is a rank 2 alchemy weapon. The purple-robed middle-aged man said. Rank 2. Dongbu Shuang and Zhongling were both startled. In Water Rights Town, there was also a rank 2 alchemy weapon? Its entire body is ice cold, and its creator called it the Feishuo spear. The purple-robed middle-aged man said, "Its best feature is that when using the spear, countless snowflakes will appear around the spear to confuse the enemy. Let me try." Dongbo Shuang picked up the two parts of the spear and began to try them out. The purple-robed middle-aged man was a little nervous. Alchemy weapons usually had their own advantages. For example, it was faster. For example, sharper. For example, it carried flames. Wait a minute. This Feishuo spear only produced some snowflakes to confuse the enemy. But to a true expert, those snowflakes would not be able to confuse them. They would be able to easily identify the spear tip. Therefore, this rank 2 alchemy weapon was placed here. As for the origin of this weapon, when Earl Quan was doing business outside, he met an old beggar. He felt that this old beggar was quite extraordinary, so he provided him with food and drinks. After 3 years before the old beggar left, he started to forge a weapon. He forged a spear and said, "This is the Feishuo spear. It should be enough to pay you back for your drinks." After he finished speaking, he left. At that time, he thought that this Feishuo spear was an amazing godly weapon. After testing it out, it was indeed a rank 2 alchemy weapon, but it did not have any amplification effect. Of course, it was still more than the price of his drinks and food. See? Dongbo Shuang held the silver-gray spear in his hand and continuously tried a dozen moves before stopping. His expression was calm, but his heart was filled with excitement. Good spear. This was a truly good spear. Even an expert who had achieved one with the spear would not be able to understand the true value of this spear. But for the past few years, Dongbo Shuang had been practicing martial arts in order to achieve one with the strength. Today, he had already touched upon this realm. Therefore, he was able to discover the mysteries within. But Dongbo Shuang could not say it out loud, because he had to haggle. He really did not have the money to buy a rank 2 alchemy weapon. This spear is not bad. As expected of a rank 2 alchemy weapon. Dongbo Shuang looked at the purple-robed middle-aged man. But I feel that other than the snowflake illusion effect, it does not have any other special effects. Alchemy weapons usually have some special effects. Some enchantments, or even sharper, etc. Why does this spear not have any special effects? As for confusing the enemy, could it be that a true expert would not be able to differentiate between the snowflake and the tip of the spear? The reason why it is recognized as a rank 2 alchemy weapon is probably because it is able to withstand a battle between a legend ranker. Dongbo Shuang said, "To us who are weaker, it is not even comparable to a rank 1 alchemy weapon. A rank 1 alchemy weapon would be fine in a battle between legend rankers. But a battle between legend rankers would be earth-shattering. Even a rank 1 alchemy weapon could be broken or destroyed. Dongbo Shuang could reach the Silver Moon Knight rank in an instant. In the future, it would not take long for him to reach the might of a legend ranker. If it was a rank 1 spear, he would not be able to use it for long. This was also the reason why he wanted to get his hands on this Feishuo spear. Of course, the main reason was because of the profoundness of this Feishuo spear. But it is still a rank 2 alchemy weapon. Moreover, I can see that you like it very much." The purple-robed middle-aged man said, "Give me a price." Dongbo Shuang said, 30,000 gold coins. The purple-robed middle-aged man said. Dongbo Shuang laughed. In fact, he felt even more helpless in his heart. This was because the entire Dongbo clan was only left with 15,000 gold coins. Moreover, this was with the help of Uncle Zong. 2 years ago, the Dongbo clan had already run out of money. This was because Dongbo Shuang had been soaking in medicinal baths for almost 10 years since he was 6 years old. All of his gold coins had been soaked in it. The medicinal baths cost 5,000 gold coins for a year. For almost 10 years, that was 50,000 gold coins. At that time, Dongbo Lai and his wife also thought that their son would become a knight at the age of 10. Once he became a knight, he would no longer need to soak in medicinal baths. Who would have thought that Dongbo Shuang would only break through when he was almost 16 years old? Then how much for the violet blood spear? Dongbo Shuang immediately turned to look at the violet blood spear. That's only 5,000 gold coins. The purple-robed middle-aged man said. This cannot be compared to the Feishuo spear. The Feishuo spear is a rank 2 alchemy weapon. Although it does not have any support effects, it is still a rank 2 alchemy weapon. In a battle, it depends on the actual effects. Dongbo Shuiying said. The highest price I can offer is 10,000 gold coins. Both sides were arguing 18,000 gold coins. I can't sell it for such a low price. The purple-robed middle-aged man said helplessly. The reason why he sold it for such a low price was because this spear was indeed ordinary. Secondly, it was given to him by the old beggar. All he paid for it was some food and drinks. Thirdly, there were dozens of spear experts who had seen this spear. No one was willing to pay such a high price for it. There was once someone who offered him 18,000 gold coins, but he didn't sell it. Now that he had returned to Waterrights Town, it would be difficult to sell it for 18,000 gold coins. Alright. Dongbo Shuiying didn't want to argue anymore because he understood the true value of this spear. But I can only pay 8,000 gold coins in advance. And 10,000 gold coins. I'll put it on credit and pay within 3 months. He really had no money. On credit? The purple-robed middle-aged man was startled. I didn't bring that much today. I didn't expect you to have a rank 2 alchemy weapon. Dongbo Shuiying said indifferently. His current strength was extraordinary. It was not difficult to earn 10,000 to 20,000 gold coins. Especially with this spear, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Alright, it's a deal. Haha, I believe in the strength of the Dongbo clan. Write an IOU first. The purple-robed middle-aged man said. Do I need to mortgage it? Dongbo Shuiying asked. No need. The purple-robed middle-aged man was very generous. He was still very willing to befriend Dongbo Shuiying. Uncle Zong. Dongbo Shuiying said. Zhongling did not say anything from the start to the end. Everything was decided by Dongbo Shuiying. At this moment, Zhongling took out a stack of gold notes from his bosom. He took out 2 of them and handed them over to the purple-robed middle-aged man. After that, Dongbo Shuiying wrote an IOU of 10,000 gold coins. After that, the Feishua godly spear was in his hands. You haven't met a spear master yet. Otherwise, how could it fall into my hands? When Dongbo Shuiying picked up the weapon box, his heart was filled with excitement. What he didn't know was that there wasn't a single spear master in the entire Azure River County. Although there were many experts who trained in weapons, there were only a few who trained in spear techniques. To be able to become one with the spear was already very impressive. Becoming a spear master? Too difficult. Chapter 15. Dongbo Shuiying swiftly carried the Feishua godly spear, weapon box on his back, and pressed the button on the side of the weapon box with his right hand. Shua! Shua! 2 parts of the spear popped out from the top of the weapon box on his back. After that, Dongbo Shuiying swiftly grabbed the 2 parts of the spear on his back and pulled them out. Then, he inserted them into the weapon box with ease. With a click, the weapon box was completely locked. Brother is so cool. Qingshi's eyes immediately lit up. In the future, you will be even more handsome as a sorcerer. Dongbo Shuiying smiled as he looked at his brother. Haha, this weapon box was specially prepared by me. The purple-robed middle-aged man was in a good mood after finally selling off the goods that he had kept for many years. There are also a few traps on the side. When you are out adventuring, you can also place ropes and other items in the weapon box. The weapon box was very light, and it could store many items. Furthermore, it could store heavy weapons and long weapons at an extremely fast speed. Specially prepared weapon box? Dongbo Shuiying asked with a smile. This Feishua godly spear's creator didn't specially prepare a weapon box for it. This doesn't seem right, right? Some alchemists would also prepare a weapon box after refining it, and the packaging would be very exquisite. But this spear's weapon box was actually prepared by someone else? Dongbo Shuiying was very curious about the origin of this spear. This was because the creator of the spear was very clear about how precious this spear was. Logically speaking, the price of this spear should be sky high. But this shop owner, Earl Quan, sold it to him for only 18,000 gold coins. This made Dongbo Shuiying even more curious about the origin of this spear. Don't worry. Since I have already bought it, I won't regret it. Dongbo Shuiying said. Huh? The purple-robed middle-aged man hesitated for a while, then said, Brother Snow Eagle, I won't hide it from you. When I was out doing business, I met an old beggar. He ate and drank in my territory without paying. I felt that he was not an ordinary person, so I let him eat and drink. 3 years later, he refined this spear and said that he would pay for the food and drink before leaving. I was very excited at that time. I really met a powerful person, so I quickly sent it to the appraisal office. After a few appraisals, it only had the effect of confusing snowflakes, but it didn't have any other special effects. Fortunately, it was able to withstand enough power, so it was classified as a rank 2 alchemist weapon. Dongbu Shuiying nodded slightly. After buying the weapons, Shuiying and the others went to visit Great Mage Bai Yuanji. The great Taoist master's residence is at the end of this alley. Zhongling pointed at a rather narrow alley ahead. Dismount. Everyone else wait here. Uncle Zong Pebble, let's go in, Shuiying said. Dongbu Shuiying held his brother's hand and walked along the old alley. I didn't expect that the alchemist Bai Yuanji wouldn't live in a noble's district, but in such a remote place, Dongbu Shuiying said. The noble's district is too impulsive. This place is more peaceful. Zhongling said. They walked to the end of the alley. They saw a huge mansion. The door was tightly shut. Dongbu Shuiying personally knocked on the door. Hua! The door opened. A short-haired teenager asked curiously, "Who are you looking for?" Baron Snow Eagle Dongbu Shuiying. I am here to visit the alchemist. Dongbu Shuiying said. You are the spear demon? The short-haired teenager exclaimed. He immediately covered his mouth. Junior brother, who is it? Voices of other teenagers could be heard from within the mansion. Teacher is doing research behind closed doors. No one dares to disturb him. Baron Dongbu, I'm afraid you will have to wait for an hour. The teenager hurriedly explained. When teacher comes out, I will immediately inform him. I don't dare to let you in now. All right, there's no rush. Dongbu Shuiying said. Dongbu Shuiying was very patient. An hour later, Bai Yuanji was wearing a loose white robe. His skin was slightly wrinkled, and his black beard reached his stomach. He was already over 90 years old. He looked at the black-robed teenager in front of him who was carrying a weapon box. He was secretly shocked. He could feel a sharp aura coming from this teenager. He was definitely not an ordinary spear expert. Alchemist. Dongbu Shuiying's attitude was rather humble. What's the matter? Please speak. I still have many things to do. Bai Yuanji said straightforwardly. Alchemist is very direct. I will be straightforward. Dongbu Shuiying said. My little brother will be 10 years old after the new year. He is extremely talented in magic. I hope that he will be able to become your disciple. It's not difficult to accept an in-name disciple. There are just some conditions. Bai Yuanji said casually. No. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. I hope that my little brother can become your personal disciple. Personal disciple. Bai Yuanji frowned. Although I am over 90 years old, I am not considered old among the star-level mages. I still want to go further in the magic realm, so I will not waste too much energy. Until now, I have only accepted one personal disciple. You want me to accept your little brother as my personal disciple? It's not impossible. I have 2 requirements. As long as you can fulfill one of them, I will accept your little brother as my personal disciple. Dongbu Shuiying said. Alchemist, please speak. I urgently need a magical beast material. The heart of the silver moon. Bai Yuanji's eyes lit up. The heart of the 4th-rank magical beast, Silver Moon Wolf King. It must be fresh, and can't be stored for more than 3 days. What about the other requirement? Dongbu Shuiying asked. The heart of the Silver Moon Wolf King and fresh? That was too high a requirement. Mages need money. Bai Yuanji sighed. All kinds of research costs money, and it's not easy to earn money. With 50,000 gold coins, I can accept another personal disciple. In the entire Water Rights town, even if the nobles sold their territories to raise money, there were only a few who could take out 50,000 gold coins. But the territory was the foundation of the nobles, and there were only a few who could take out 50,000 gold coins. Okay, I understand. Dongbu Shuiying stood up. Bai Yuanji sighed. He knew that his requirements were too high. Within a month, I will bring the heart of the silver moon, or 50,000 gold coins to you. Dongbu Shuiying stood up and said. Bai Yuanji was stunned. Agreed? Bai Yuanji couldn't help but be excited. I was waiting for my lord. Grand Mage Bai Yuanji also stood up and spoke politely. The first disciple he accepted was the child of his good friend. Without sufficient conditions, he was too lazy to waste his energy. Moreover, his requirements were so high that no noble in Water Rights Town had ever agreed to his request. But Dongbu Shuang agreed. Goodbye, there's no need to send me off. Dongbu Shuang stood up and walked out. Bai Yuanji stood by the window and looked down at the courtyard. Dongbu Shuang held his brother's hand and walked out of the mansion. The silver-haired six-armed serpent demon Zhongling followed beside them. It seems that this young lord is not ordinary. Bai Yuanji smiled. Big brother, how is it? Qing Shi asked expectantly. There will be results after the new year. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Don't worry, Qing Shi. The great mage will accept you as his disciple. Wait a little longer, wait until after the new year. Dongbu Shuang was secretly calculating. To get the heart of the silver moon or 50,000 gold coins in a month. The time he set was very loose, so it shouldn't be a problem. But he would tell his brother after he was done. He couldn't brag to his brother now. Chapter 16. Night. Snow Eagle Territory, Snowrock Castle Study. Dongbu Shuang sat behind his desk, while Zhongling and Tongsen also casually sat down. Snow Eagle, why are you looking for us? Tongsan was somewhat puzzled. I went to look for the great Taoist master today. The great Taoist master agreed to accept Qing Shi as his personal disciple, but he made two requests. One was 50,000 gold coins, or the Silver Moon Wolf King's heart. As long as he satisfies one of his requests, Qing Shi will be able to acknowledge him as his master. Dongbu Shuang said. 50,000 gold coins? Tongsen stared at him. You're really black-hearted. Your uncle Zong, master, and I risked our lives in the past, but we didn't get many treasures. After master got pregnant, we had a big unexpected gain. Otherwise, how could your father and the others buy the noble title in the Snow Eagle territory? Did he just ask for 50,000 gold coins? This amount was very exaggerated. Even if a meteor knight were to pour out his entire fortune, it would be hard for him to take out such an amount. His parents were one of the few lucky ones when they were adventuring outside. Moreover, adventurers usually went to very dangerous places, and the death rate was extremely high. His parents were lucky enough to survive, so they could buy a title and a territory. Moreover, those who dared to become adventurers weren't afraid of death and were extremely fierce. This was also the reason why, even though the nobles of Water Rights Town knew that Snow Eagle territory was very rich, none of them dared to have any thoughts about it. The Silver Moon Wolf King's heart is even more difficult. At the side, Zhongling frowned. If it's just a simple 4th-rank Silver Moon Wolf King, with Snow Eagle's current strength and our cooperation, there's still a chance of winning. But the Silver Moon Wolf King has a large pack of wolves under his command. When surrounded by a pack of wolves, it's even more terrifying than a single Wolf King. The Wolf King itself was not scary, but the wolf pack was. Therefore, even though the Silver Moon Wolf King was a Class 4 magical beast, the value of its carcass was comparable to a Class 5 magical beast. I'm preparing to enter the mountain range of desolation, Dongbu Shuang said. Don't, too risky. Tongsan and Zhongling were shocked. What kind of place was the desolate mountain range? It was the largest mountain range in the entire world, and it connected 4 provinces. Countless magical beasts and even extraordinary life forms lived within it. Generation after generation, the entire human empire had not been able to completely eliminate this huge threat. In fact, the empire's main defense area was around the mountain range of magical beasts. The army often carried out large-scale killings on the outskirts of the mountain range, and large batches of low-grade magical beast meat could only be bought outside. Therefore, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd-grade magical beast meat was relatively cheap. But from the 4th level onwards, it suddenly increased explosively. This was because a Class 4 magical beast was not something that an ordinary army could hunt. It needed to be the elite of the elite. Even the army is mobilized on a large scale, and the area they sweep is only the outermost 3,000 li, Zhongling also said. Even Silver Moon Knights and Legend Knights are unwilling to enter the mountain range of desolation. There isn't much to gain in the outer 3,000 miles. If you go deeper, you might encounter some terrifying magical beasts at any time. That's right, Snow Eagle. Tong-san also said, when Master and I ventured into the mountain range of desolation, we never thought of going into the mountain range of desolation. Just like you want to hunt down a 4th-ranked magical beast. But it's impossible for you to encounter a 4th-ranked magical beast so coincidentally. Perhaps you'll encounter a 5th rank, or even a 6th-ranked magical beast. Then you'll be dead. They were all very anxious. The mountain range of desolation? That was the ultimate nest of the great enemy of mankind, the magical beasts. If they went in, they would really be gambling with their lives. You didn't hear me out. Dongbu Shuang laughed. I'm preparing to enter the mountain range of desolation, but I'm only going to the outermost 3,000 li. Hunting magical beasts is secondary. The most important thing is to hunt down the Bent Blade Union. Bent Blade Union? Zhongling and Tong-san's eyes lit up. In the outer 3,000 li, because the army frequently swept through, the stronger magical beasts had long since retreated. Generally, only a large number of low-level magical beasts remained. Every time they swept through, it was actually a large-scale battle between the army and the low-level magical beasts. The low-level magical beasts were endless. Every time they swept through a group, there would always be more low-level magical beasts coming out from the depths of the mountain range of desolation. In the outer 3,000 li, too many human soldiers had fallen, but it also allowed the army to hone many strong warriors. Bent Blade Union? These bandits are hidden in the mountain range of desolation. They don't dare to go too deep, so they only stay in the outermost 3,000 li. Zhongling lightly nodded. Moreover, the leader of the Bent Blade Union, Gu Bin, is a meteor knight. He often plunders, so he must have a lot of treasures. Moreover, the entire bandit nest probably has even more treasures, so it won't be easy to attack. The enemy is in the light while I'm in the dark. Uncle Zong, how do you think my strength compares to Gu Bin's? Dongbu Shuang asked. You are much stronger than him. I can still hold on for a while if I fight with him, but if I fight with you, if you really use your full strength, I won't be able to hold on. Zhongling laughed bitterly. Normally, Dongbu Shuang would reach the peak of a meteor knight. When he explodes, his strength would climb to the Silver Moon Knight level. His spear skills were close to that of a spear master, and his Douqi circulation technique was taught to him by the mysterious Ice Knight, Gu Yuanhan. Your only weakness is that you haven't seen enough blood. Zhongling said, although some of the criminals in our territory were executed by you, your life and death experience is still too little. In the end, sparring with us is just sparring. I understand. Therefore, in this trip to the mountain range of desolation, in the process of searching for the Bent Blade Union's nest, we will definitely meet many magical beasts so we can train ourselves. Dongbu Shuang said. It won't be easy to find the Bent Blade Union's nest. Zhongling was a little worried. In the process, we will meet magical beasts time and time again. And there's even a small chance that we will meet some powerful magical beasts. Although in the outermost 3,000 li, there would be transcendence. Rank 6 magical beasts were unlikely to appear. But rank 5 and rank 4 magical beasts would occasionally appear. Once the army swept through, they would see that the situation was not good and would retreat. But for a person like Dongbu Shuang, who was adventuring, these powerful magical beasts could ambush and kill him. My luck shouldn't be that bad. Dongbu Shuang said, moreover, my spear techniques are quite good at defense, so I have the confidence to stay alive. Moreover, if we don't go to the mountain range of desolation, how are we going to earn 50,000 gold coins? Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Don't want to take risks? It was very safe for a meteor knight to be a guest guard for a big family, but their annual salary was only 3,000 to 5,000 gold coins. Want to earn tens of thousands of gold coins? That was a huge risk. All right, Zhongling said, I'll go with you. I've been to the outermost 3,000 li of the mountain range of desolation a few times. Uncle Zong, you've been there before? Dongbu Shuang was shocked. Yes, after your parents bought the Snow Eagle territory, I trained alone and went to the outermost area of the mountain range of desolation to train myself. Zhongling, as a member of the serpent race's royal family, had his own pride. He had always wanted to break through the heaven rank and step into the meteor realm. When you go to the mountain range of desolation, listen to your Uncle Zong and don't be careless. Tong-san reminded. After 5 days of preparation, in the morning, Dongbu Shuang and Zhongling set off with a team of 100 soldiers. The castle's drawbridge had already been lowered. "Brother, come back early." Qing Shi ran to the edge of the mountain and shouted. Tong San stood beside him. "Qing Shi, don't worry. Be obedient and listen to Uncle Tong's words." Shuang, who was already far away, replied, "I know." Qing Shi nodded his head, but his heart was filled with reluctance. Ever since he was young, he hadn't been separated from his brother for too long. This time his brother was going out for 10 days to half a month. What he didn't know was that Dongbu Shuang was going out to earn his school fees. Dongbu Shuang and his team of cavalrymen traveled with ease. In the evening, they arrived at the edge of the mountain range of desolation, which was 900 li away. The cavalrymen began to set up camp. They started to cook rice. Old Yang, Zhongling and Dongbu Shuang were together with the bearded man. This man was called Yang Cheng. He was an earth-ranked knight and was loyal to the Dongbu clan. He was also the captain of this team of 100 soldiers. Zhongling said, "Tomorrow morning, the Lord and I will enter the mountain range. I will leave this place to you." "Sir Zhongling, Lord, please be at ease. I will definitely handle this small matter properly." "Lord, you must be careful." Yang Cheng said worriedly, "When I was in the army, I had swept through the outer regions of the mountain range of desolation. But that was when the entire army was mobilized. I had never gone out alone. Moreover, the magical beasts that covered the sky and covered the earth charged fearlessly. Out of the 10 brothers who joined the army with me, only 3 or 4 were able to retire safely. The rest almost all died in the mountain range of desolation." Dongbu Shuang nodded. The mountain range of desolation was indeed a forbidden area. Those who dared to enter the outer regions were the army and some bandits. As for the deeper regions, there were even fewer who dared to enter. Early the next morning, the sky was just beginning to brighten. Carrying the weapon box, Dongbu Shuang and Zhongling quietly entered the mountain range of desolation on foot. In the mountain range of desolation, there was no way to ride a horse. Moreover, if the horse made any noise, it might attract some terrifying magical beasts. "Lord, you must be careful." Captain Yang Cheng and the other soldiers looked at the black-clothed youngster and the silver-haired snakeman worriedly as they left. They disappeared into the distant forest of the mountain range of desolation, never to be seen again. Today is Monday. Please give me a recommendation vote. Chapter 17. Deep in the mountains it was completely silent. Sunlight could not shine in, it was dark and damp, and there were many places covered in snow. The silver-haired snake man and the black-clothed youth held their weapons and were extremely careful. "Uncle Zong, we have been here for almost an hour, but we have not met a single demonic beast," Dongbu Shuang said in a low voice. He was a little nervous, but at the same time he was eager to try. After all, he had not fully displayed his strength after the huge increase. Zhongling shook his head helplessly. This nephew of his seemed mature, but he still had the temperament of a youth. He said in a low voice, "We have just entered the mountain, and belong to the outermost area of the outer area. Naturally, there are very few demonic beasts. The deeper we go, the easier it is to meet them. At that time, it will depend on your strength." Dongbu Shuang nodded his head lightly. "Sha," it was a very soft sound. Dongbu Shuang's ears twitched, and he immediately reached out to stop Zhongling. Zhongling's heart immediately tightened. Although he did not hear the sound, Dongbu Shuang's hearing and vision were extremely sharp after he awakened his primordial bloodline. "There!" Dongbu Shuang stared at the left side. Zhongling also stared there. A clear rustling sound came from the thorny bushes in the distance, and a black and skinny figure with 4 hooves slowly came out. They all looked like wolves, but they were much smaller. They were black and skinny, and their bodies were densely covered with black scales. A pair of dark red eyes carried a hint of coldness. They just looked at the 2 humans calmly. Black-scaled jackals? Dongbu Shuang and Zhongling's heart tightened. The demonic beasts they met in the Mountain of Desolation were not to be trifled with. Black-scaled jackals were ranked 3 demonic beasts. They were very calm and fierce, and they were good at cooperating. Furthermore, their claws and teeth were extremely poisonous. What was a rank 3 demonic beast? It meant that their individual strength had reached the level of a heaven-ranked knight. They all formed small groups to survive. The large group of black-scaled jackals that came out of the thistles and thorns in front of them had as many as 35 of them. Even a single rank for demonic beast would be torn into pieces. This is troublesome. Zhongling was a little nervous. Snow Eagle, be careful. And Uncle Zong, protect yourself. Leave them to me. Dongbu Shuiying took a deep breath. His breathing became calmer and more powerful as he stared at the large group of black-scaled jackals in front of him. With so many black-scaled jackals surrounding Dongbu Shuiying in a fan-shaped formation, they began to disperse. Being stared at by so many black-scaled jackals, Dongbu Shuiying felt a little nervous. His willpower was amazing and his spear skills were also very high. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a powerful opponent. Roar! A low and unpleasant sound came from the mouth of the black-scaled jackal at the back. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! All the black-scaled jackals pounced from all directions. Even a meteor knight wouldn't be able to resist being besieged by so many heaven-ranked knights. Die! The spear in Dongbu Shuiying's hand moved. Xiao! The spear was as fast as lightning. The moment the spear pierced out, countless snowflakes and petals appeared. The scene was incomparably beautiful. The black-scaled jackal that was attacked immediately waved its sharp claws to block the spear. The moment the spearhead was blocked, the entire spear suddenly rotated. The rotational force pushed away the sharp claws. Poochie! The tip of the spear instantly pierced through the lower jaw of the black-scaled jackal and went through the back of its head. The body of the rank 3 black-scaled jackal twitched for a moment before it stopped moving. The moment it was stabbed to death, Dongbu Shuiying quickly withdrew his spear and stabbed again like lightning. Withdrawing and stabbing, it was like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue. Pooh! Another black-scaled jackal was killed on the spot. These black-scaled jackals were all experts in close combat. However, the spear skills that Dongbu Shuiying had honed for 10 years were too powerful. Roar roar roar! The black-scaled jackals didn't slow down in the slightest. In an extremely short period of time, Dongbu Shuiying only managed to kill 3 black-scaled jackals before he was attacked by 8 black-scaled jackals at the same time. Scram! The spear was like a shadow, whipping and slashing rapidly. Just like how he had whipped the alchemist dummies in the past, Dongbu Shuiying's one swing sent 4 black-scaled jackals flying. Then with another sweep, another 4 black-scaled jackals were sent flying. In terms of pure strength, Dongbu Shuiying had the absolute advantage. However, as the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. The terrifying thing about the black-scaled jackals was that they were surrounded by a large number of fearless enemies. Snow Eagle, faster, faster. If you can't block them, then run. Zhongling, who was on the branch of a big tree at the side, had his tail wrapped around the tree trunk. His speed and agility were what saved his life when he entered the mountain range of desolation previously. I know. Dongbu Shuiying was highly focused. His spear skills were high, but under the pressure of life and death, it would still be affected. Moreover, these black-scaled jackals' bones and scales were very hard. It would take time to stab and pull them out. This caused his spear skills to slow down. I have to move, I can't just let them surround me. Dongbu Shuiying gradually practiced the sparring that he usually practiced in the castle. In the castle, he would often be surrounded by a large group of soldiers at the same time. Dongbu Shuiying relied on his spear skills to move and kill. Of course, when he was sparring, he did not use any weapons. Dongbu Shuiying also gradually learned it. Occasionally, he would simply move, reducing the number of black-scaled jackals that he had to face. This caused the black-scaled jackals to lose their target. This caused him to only need to face 3 black-scaled jackals at a time. Poo pew pew. Snowflakes fluttered, blood splattered, and black-scaled jackals fell one by one. Pung pung. Dongbu Shuiying became more and more natural and carefree. He suddenly whipped his spear. A strong force ran through the entire spear and suddenly whipped a black-scaled jackal. The black-scaled jackal's body was whipped until it twisted strangely. Its bones were broken into countless pieces. It twitched on the ground and vomited blood. Zhongling, who was at the top of the tree, revealed a happy expression as he looked down. He adapted quite quickly, faster than I expected. In this kind of life and death battle, he can even display his full strength. Zhongling nodded slightly. In another 2 or 3 days, he should be able to adapt completely. Roar! A short and frightened roar came from the group of black-scaled jackals. The remaining black-scaled jackals immediately turned around and fled. Dongbu Shuiying chased and killed 2 more before stopping. Hoo-hoo! Only then did Dongbu Shuiying let out a sigh of relief. His breathing became heavier, and the blood in his body flowed much faster. How is it? Zhongling jumped down from the high place. It is indeed different. Dongbu Shuiying nodded lightly. 3 years ago, when I was fighting with the prisoners of the territory, I also felt this kind of tension. But that was one-on-one. This kind of life and death battle made me think more about the use of the spear skills. A high realm of the spear skills only meant that the spear skills had reached an extremely high realm. But in actual combat, how should the moves be combined? How should the steps be coordinated? This was all combat experience. Furthermore, in a life and death battle, the blood in the entire body would boil, and the energy would surge. The control of the energy in the entire body would be even more precise. Dongbu Shuiying said, "This is the instinct of a living being under the threat of death." Zhongling said, "My spear skills might have a breakthrough even faster." Dongbu Shuiying's blood was ignited in the depths of his heart. Training hard for 10 years, honing his amazing skills. Wasn't this mountain range of desolation the best place to display them? Let's go quickly. The smell of blood here is too strong. It will attract more demonic beasts. Zhongling urged. Dongbu Shuiying nodded his head. They didn't care about the corpses of the third-ranked demonic beasts. Although the third-ranked demonic beasts were worth a little, how many could the 2 of them carry away? The value was too low, and it wasn't worth it. As for the storage treasure, the space in Dongbu Shuiying's storage treasure was probably only enough to store 1 black-scaled beast. The space was too small. After arriving at the mountain range of desolation, Dongbu Shuiying was like a dragon that had entered the sea. His battle experience accumulated continuously, and his spear skills had also been honed. Every night, the 2 of them would immediately return to the campsite outside. One of them was a member of the royal family of the Naga race, while the other had awakened the primordial bloodline. Their walking speed was extremely fast, and they could easily maintain a speed of 200 li in 2 hours. They were slow when they explored, and fast when they returned back to the campsite. They still had to spend the night in the camp. After all, they also needed a good rest. Spending the night in the mountains was too tiring. Time passed day by day. Dongbu Shuiying's improvement made Zhongling speechless. He could see that Dongbu Shuiying was becoming more and more experienced. Every time he fought, Dongbu Shuiying would think and learn from his mistakes so that he could perform better the next time. Since young, he has learned to think and summarize. Even in every battle, he would think and summarize. No wonder his spear skills are so powerful. Zhongling mumbled to himself. He had always felt that Dongbu Shuiying was very intelligent. He also thought that he was very intelligent. He also knew how to learn from his mistakes. Actually, many people understood this logic. However, Dongbu Shuiying's thinking was more unique, and his efficiency was obviously higher. For example, when a child was young, they would only remember the exciting stories of transcendent knights when they read novels. However, Dongbu Shuiying had discovered the growth pattern of these transcendent knights. For example, almost 90% of them had never entered an academy before. For example, the few words in the novels had revealed that many of them placed great importance on their foundation, which led to Dongbu Shuiying's spear skills to an abnormal level. Chapter 18. Dongbu Shuiying and Zhongling were squatting on the peak of a tall mountain in the mountain range of desolation, looking into the distance. "Uncle Zhong," Dongbu Shuiying asked, "we have been in the mountain range of desolation for 12 days and have been searching for 12 days. We have not found any traces of the Bent Blade Alliance. Every time the Bent Blade Alliance escaped into the mountain range of desolation, they would appear in this area. According to the information we have gathered over the years, our location should be correct." Zhongling said. The main purpose of this trip to the mountain range of desolation was to hunt down the Bent Blade Alliance. The Bent Blade Alliance had been wreaking havoc in the water rights territory for too long. Time and time again, they would come out to commit evil deeds and escape. People would often see them. Therefore, they were able to gather the general geographical location of the Bent Blade Alliance. The campsite outside was also meticulously planned. From the campsite outside, they would venture 500 li deep into the mountain range of desolation. This was the area Ying and the rest had delineated. They were certain that the Bent Blade Alliance was within this area. The fugitives of the Bent Blade Alliance often come and go. Naturally, they would have a safer route. However, this is the mountain range of desolation. Demonic beasts could appear at any time. Therefore, they could not venture too deep. Otherwise, it would take them 14 to 16 hours to enter and exit. Their walking speed could not catch up to us. Many of them are not even knights. Zhongling said. Let's search slowly. We will definitely find them. 500 li did not seem big. However, it was still difficult for the two of them to search slowly. After all, the nest of the Bent Blade Alliance must be hidden very well. Ying and Zhongling continued to search carefully. Although they would occasionally encounter demonic beasts, Ying could temporarily maintain his Silver Moon Knight rank. His spear skills were also very powerful. Therefore, he was able to block them all. After all, there were very few demonic beasts above the third rank in the outer area. In the gloomy forest, the snow never melted, and the air was cold. Ying and Zhongling quietly walked around, searching for traces of the Bent Blade Alliance. Ying's ears twitched as he whispered, "Uncle Zong, let's go over there and take a look." He pointed to a high ground in the distance. "What did you find?" Zhongling and Ying walked over and asked at the same time. "You'll know when you see it." Ying carefully climbed up to the high ground. Zhongling also climbed to the high ground. The two of them stuck their heads out and looked into the distance. In the distance was a large lake. The lake was as beautiful as a giant jade, and there was a large pack of snow-white wolves beside the lake. The wolves were densely packed, and they were either drinking water with their heads lowered, or lying on the grass beside the lake. At a glance, there were at least 200 to 300 wolves in this pack. These wolves were much larger than the black-scaled jackals, and each of them was comparable to the frost magic beast colt. Their fur was white and smooth, and they were quite beautiful. Silver Moon Wolf. Zhongling gulped, his face pale. There's also the Wolf King. Xuering looked at the farthest spot, at the Silver Moon Wolf King lying on the shore. Around it were 10 or so Silver Moon Wolves that were obviously larger than the rest. Who would have thought that I would actually meet the Silver Moon Wolf King? Xuering grinned, revealing a bitter smile. Let's go. There's no way to fight. There's no hope at all. Zhongling shook his head. Xuering stared at it. That's right. There was no hope at all. From their size, it could be seen that the Silver Moon Wolf was a third-rank magical beast, and its size was much larger than the black-scaled jackals. The Silver Moon Wolf's momentum was also very strong. A Silver Moon Wolf weighed 8,000 jin, and when it ran, the momentum would be at least 10,000 jin. Xuering could easily kill 4 to 5 black-scaled jackals with a single strike of his spear. But the Silver Moon Wolf? Xuering could only kill one. And there were 200 to 300 of them. Even 3 to 5 meteor knights would not be able to stop them. And there was still the strongest Silver Moon Wolf King. I'll use my movement technique to dodge, and try my best to only face a few Silver Moon Wolves at a time. Xuering thought to himself, however, with the Silver Moon Wolf King as the leader, things will not go as smoothly as I think. If there are any twists and turns, I won't be able to escape even if I fall into the wolf pack. Let's go. Xuering chose to give up. He had been in the mountain range of desolation for quite some time, and he knew how terrifying these magical beasts were. If he were to fight with the entire Silver Moon Wolf pack now, the chances of success would be less than 10%. And the chances of him dying was 70 to 80%. It was not worth the risk. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. Xuering and the rest had been working hard to find the nest of the Bent Blade Union. This Bent Blade Union is really well hidden. Xuering clenched his teeth. It had been half a month, and they had searched the area of 500 li twice. They are also afraid that their nest will be found. Zhongling laughed. Snow Eagle, you are still not patient enough. When your Uncle Tong, your parents and I were looking for a treasure, it took us 3 whole months. Did you find it? Xuering asked. Not found it. Zhongling said. Not found it. Dongbu Shuiying was stunned. He thought that Uncle Zong said this because he had found a great harvest. Zhongling laughed. Why is it strange? Do you think that you will find the treasure just because you are looking for it? Most of the time, things in this world will not go as one wishes. Dongbu Shuiying nodded lightly. His heart was moved. 9 out of 10 things in this world will not go as one wishes. Although he was better than Uncle Zong in many aspects, such as the finances of the territory, cultivation techniques and so on, but he was still lacking in some of the principles of life. The two of them continued to search. Just at this time, a blurry gray and skinny beast with 4 hooves was standing on top of a tree, looking down at Dongbu Shuiying and Zhongling. But Dongbu Shuiying and Zhongling did not notice it at all. Whoosh! With a nimble leap, the 4-hooved beast landed noiselessly on top of another large tree, continuing to stare at Shuiying and the others. Even with Shuiying's sharp 6 senses, he could not detect this movement. It had a streamlined body shape, similar to a black-scaled jackal. But its fur was like satin, and it could cause people to hallucinate, as if its body was a shadow. This was a terrifying predator. A Class 5 magical beast, Shadow Leopard. The shadow leopard was extremely terrifying. It walked silently in the shadows, and when it bared its fangs, it would usually kill its target. It was one of the top predators in the mountain range of desolation. The legendary Class 6 magical beast, Shadow Leopard King, could completely blend into the shadows, and people would not be able to see it, even if they opened their eyes wide. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The shadow leopard approached silently, and it carefully stared at the young man in black. As a top-notch predator, it could feel that the threat of this young man in black was far greater than the silver-haired Naga beside him. As long as it could kill the young man in black, it would be very easy. Whoosh! The shadow leopard's gray eyes suddenly revealed a murderous intent, and it suddenly dashed out. A gray afterimage. It was too fast. Even Dongbu Shuiying's top speed could not be compared to the shadow leopard's speed. This was a terrifying speed that even Silver Moon Knights would have a headache. Dongbu Shuiying, who was walking side by side with Uncle Zong, suddenly had a change of expression. All the hairs on his body stood up, and his heart suddenly contracted. Die! Dongbu Shuiying did not have time to turn around, and he suddenly dashed forward. He also did not have time to defend himself, and could only use the spear in his hand to stab backwards. This stab from the end of the spear was also very powerful, and even a normal rank 4 magical beast would not be able to block it. However, this time it was a rank 5 magical beast, the Shadow Leopard, that specialized in sneak attacks. The Shadow Leopard's sharp claws slapped on the shaft of Dongbu Shuiying's spear, and using the rebound force, it ruthlessly clawed at Dongbu Shuiying's back. A terrifying impact hit Dongbu Shuiying's body, and he could not help but fly forward. Pung! At the same time when its sharp claws slapped on Dongbu Shuiying's spear, as an expert that was almost at the level of a spear master, the spear naturally took advantage of the momentum, and suddenly turned 180 degrees, and in an instant it hit the shadow leopard's body in midair. Although Dongbu Shuiying's body was flying forward, he still forcefully twisted his body, and the spinning force of the spear was very powerful. The shadow leopard fell to the ground, but its soft body was able to instantly deflect the force, and it was able to dodge the attack. When Dongbu Shuiying fell to the ground, he immediately did a somersault in midair, and crouched on the ground. Holding the spear in his hand, he stared angrily at the shadow leopard in the distance. He felt a pain in his back, and his internal organs were trembling, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Goo! Spitting out the blood in his mouth, Dongbu Shuiying's teeth were all red, and he glared at the shadow leopard. Did you vote for me? If you didn't, please spend a few seconds to support me. Chapter 19. It's a shadow leopard. Zhongling was shocked, but he quickly retreated. So. Borrowing the force of his snake tail, he leaped with astonishing speed. After 3 consecutive jumps, he had already escaped to the top of a distant tree. But the shadow leopard only glanced at Zhongling coldly, then continued to stare at Dongbu Shuiying. It did not put the silver-haired snake man in its eyes. It was a rank 5 magical beast famous for its speed. How could it kill a heaven-ranked knight? One move was enough. Furthermore, with its tyrannical body, Even if it just stood there and let the heaven-ranked knight hack and stab it, it would not be able to injure it at all. It completely ignored Zhongling, and almost all of its attention was on Shui Ying. This black-clothed human was the real threat. Even after being ambushed by it, he was still able to counterattack. Uncle Zhong, stay far away, the further the better, Dongbu Shuiying said in a low voice. Snow Eagle, be careful, the shadow leopard is very fast. Zhongling knew that he could not help, so he quickly retreated. Dongbu Shuiying stared at the shadow leopard and grinned. I didn't expect to meet a rank 5 magical beast on my first trip to the mountain range of desolation. As he spoke, his left hand tore off the 2 cloth straps in front of his chest. Clang! The weapon box on his back immediately fell to the ground. The entire weapon box had been completely torn apart. His outer clothes were also torn. Fortunately, he was wearing a protective inner armor. Otherwise, that claw would have seriously injured him. Hee. The shadow leopard let out a low voice, and slowly moved around Dongbu Shuiying. Its 4 paws had meat pads, and its steps were very light. Dongbu Shuiying kept staring at it. A human and a magical beast. They were staring at each other's eyes. Life and death were on the line. Swoosh swoosh. The shadow leopard suddenly moved. It first pounced to the side, but as soon as it pounced, it stepped on the ground and instantly changed its direction, directly towards Dongbu Shuiying. Die! Dongbu Shuiying's spear was like a venomous snake, appearing in front of the shadow leopard in an instant. The shadow leopard stared at Dongbu Shuiying with its gloomy eyes. As it rushed out, its 4 hooves were practically touching the ground at all times. With a light tap as fast as lightning, it had already changed directions once again, dodging the sharp tip of the spear. Again and again he pounced and changed directions. Dongbu Shuiying was doing his best to defend. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The shadow leopard turned into a ghostly shadow, surrounding Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying was surrounded by countless spear tips, as well as the snowflakes formed by the Feishua godly spear. Too fast, too fast. Not enough, still not enough. Dongbu Shuiying felt that his body was slow. Although some of his techniques from the mystic ice spear art were known for their speed, compared to the shadow leopard, the difference was still very obvious. The shadow leopard seemed to be taking a stroll around him, looking for an opportunity time after time. This kind of mirage-like movement was not even the shadow leopard's limit. The shadow leopard's eyes were very calm, as if everything was under its control. Boom! The air distorted, and the shadow leopard's speed suddenly increased, charging towards Dongbu Shuiying. This is the moment. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes turned red, and a faint blood-red aura appeared around his body. It was obvious that Dongbu Shuiying had completely activated his primordial bloodline. Power explosion. Boom! The tip of the spear spun, tearing the air apart, drawing a twisted arc as it pierced towards the shadow leopard. The shadow leopard was shocked. The speed of this spear was completely out of its expectations. If it was on guard, it would be able to dodge this spear easily. But at this moment, it was already in front of Dongbu Shuiying. The distance was too close and its body was too fast, there was no way for it to dodge. Roar! It let out a ferocious roar, and both of its front claws slammed onto the spear. The spear spun like a swimming snake. With this leap, the spear's rotation reduced the impact by more than half, and it continued to pierce towards the shadow leopard's abdomen. The shadow leopard's entire body twisted as if it had no bones, trying its best to dodge this terrifying spear. Rip! The tip of the spear brushed past the shadow leopard's soft white abdomen, and a bloody wound appeared. The shadow leopard borrowed the force of the spear to fly up into the sky, and directly landed on a branch of a large tree. There was a 2 qi long wound on its abdomen, but the wound had already closed, and some blood was dripping down. Its gray eyes were filled with madness, and it stared at Dongbu Shuiying below. To think that I didn't kill you, you are really lucky. Dongbu Shuiying stared at the shadow leopard above, and his heart was filled with unwillingness. His explosive strength at the critical moment was the best way to catch the opponent off guard. Now that the shadow leopard was prepared, it was going to be troublesome. So. The shadow leopard was enraged, and it suddenly dashed down, stepping on the tree and sprinting downwards. After 3 leaps, it arrived in front of Dongbu Shuiying. Xiao! The faint blood-red aura around Dongbu Shuiying's body soared, and the shadow leopard carefully dodged the fatal thrust of the spear. Scram! With his spear in the air, Dongbu Shuiying immediately changed the thrust into a sweep. The sweep of the spear had the power to shatter the heavens and crack the earth. The shadow leopard revealed a look of shock. If this whip really hit, even if it didn't die, it would be severely injured. How could it know that the primordial bloodline that Dongbu Shuiying had awakened was the strength bloodline? At this moment when he swept his spear, he had to channel all his strength into the spear. The shadow leopard's body undulated like waves, and its sharp claws lightly tapped on the spear's shaft, borrowing the force to dodge. Boom! The spear swept across and hit a tree at the side. The tree suddenly exploded and the entire trunk was split in half, and the tree started to collapse. Die for me! Dongbu Shuiying dashed out, and his spear was either thrusting, slashing, or sweeping. An unending stream of attacks enveloped the shadow leopard, and the shadow leopard continuously retreated to dodge. In an instant, the surrounding forest was in trouble. Dongbu Shuiying's spear could even smash a boulder that would require 2 to 3 people to wrap their arms around it, and completely pierce through it. How could these trees withstand the devastation? The battle continued. Dongbu Shuiying also realized that he had long left Uncle Zong far behind, and this made him secretly heave a sigh of relief. However, he was still very anxious in his heart. This was because under the explosive power he seemed to be attacking crazily, and he had the upper hand. However, when he retreated, the shadow leopard would immediately chase after him, not allowing him to escape. The shadow leopard's speed was too fast. If it wanted to chase after him, Dongbu Shuiying would not be able to shake it off. What should I do? What should I do? My stamina is continuously depleting, and I can't hold on for much longer. Under the explosive power, Dongbu Shuiying could feel that his stamina was rapidly depleting. Once his stamina was depleted, he would be dead. The shadow leopard was an experienced hunter, and it was always looking for an opportunity. Finally, the rapid depletion of Dongbu Shuiying's stamina caused a flaw to appear in his attack. The shadow leopard suddenly dashed out like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, appeared in front of Dongbu Shuiying. Not good. Dongbu Shuiying's heart trembled, and his scalp went numb. The danger of death came so suddenly. Die! 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 Dongbu Shuiying went crazy, and his eyes were bloodshot. It was either you die or I die. He used all the strength in his body to thrust out the spear in his hand. This was his final struggle. Just like some wild beasts that would struggle crazily before they die, Dongbu Shuiying's instincts were aroused when he suddenly faced death. All the power in his body surged, and the time around him seemed to slow down. The shadow leopard's fangs could be seen clearly. The wind from the battle was so clear that it blew on his face. Hua hua hua. The blood in his body flowed like a river, and he could feel it clearly. The power in his bones and muscles was also being transmitted. Perfect power, pure as one. Under the threat of death, Dongbu Shuiying's instincts finally broke through the barrier. The flow of his blood, the connection between his bones and muscles. He could feel everything, and it was so wonderful. At this moment, all the power was under his control. It was incomparably precise, and there was not a single bit of waste. All the power in his body flowed like water, and he had never had such perfect control of his body before. The spear spun and pierced through the air, and its speed suddenly increased. Puji! The tip of the spear instantly pierced through the chest of the shadow leopard, and came out from its back. Holding onto the spear, Dongbu Shuiying stared at the shadow leopard that was still struggling, and blood flowed out continuously. The shadow leopard also stared at Dongbu Shuiying, but at this moment, its gray eyes were filled with fear, anger, and anxiety. Its strong vitality allowed it to struggle for half a minute, and its blood flowed all over the ground, before it finally stopped breathing. His body relaxed, and Dongbu Shuiying laid down on the cold snowy ground, and looked at the shadow leopard that was still staring at him. You die and I live. Dongbu Shuiying looked at the corpse of the shadow leopard, and felt a sense of relief. Chapter 20. Zhongling descended from a high place and looked at the messy forest that seemed to have been destroyed by a monster. His heart was filled with worry. Snow Eagle, you must be all right. You must be all right. Zhongling followed the traces of destruction. He was so anxious that his heart was twitching. Damn it! Damn it! Why am I still not able to become a meteor knight? If I had broken through, I would have been able to help Snow Eagle. I wouldn't have let Snow Eagle fall into that hopeless situation alone. His good friends Dongbo Lai and Mo Yang had been captured. They had asked him to take good care of the two children. Seeing Snow Eagle grow up from a crying baby to an adult, Zongling's feelings for Snow Eagle were very deep. Looking at the messy forest in front of him, Zongling became more and more anxious. Nothing must happen. Nothing must happen. Zongling flew forward at high speed. Hoo! With a leap, his snake tail smashed into the trunk of a nearby tree. When Zongling was in midair, he saw the figure of a black-robed youth standing in the distance. The moment he saw the figure of the black-robed youth, Zongling's heart relaxed and he let out a long breath. Snow Eagle. Zongling rushed over. Uncle Zong. Dongbo Shuiying was removing the corpse of the shadow leopard from the spear shaft. You killed the shadow leopard? Zongling looked at the corpse in disbelief. This was a terrifying hunter that was famous for its speed and agility. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. I was lucky. I was really lucky. Just a little bit more and the one who died would have been me. This was the closest he had ever been to death. Although he had fought with demonic beasts before, the sharp claws and fangs of those demonic beasts had brushed past his body and he had felt the aura of death. But that was when he had been attacked by a group of demonic beasts. He had always been in an advantageous position. But this time, although there was only one shadow leopard, it was able to suppress him in all aspects. Shua! Dongbo Shuiying stretched out his left hand, and a spear pouch appeared in his palm. There were a total of 12 short spears in the pouch, and this spear pouch was originally kept in his storage pendant. Come in. He put down the spear pouch and picked up the shadow leopard's corpse. He even curled it up slightly. Who? The corpse of the shadow leopard had disappeared without a trace, and the space inside the storage pendant was almost full, with only a few gaps in the corners. Uncle Zong, let's hurry up and leave. The smell of blood might attract the demonic beasts over. Dongbo Shuiying carried the spear bag on his back and grabbed the Feishua god spear. Don't worry too much. With the shadow leopard's aura permeating the surroundings, ordinary magical beasts wouldn't dare approach. But after experiencing such a big battle, you should have a good rest. Zongling said with a relaxed smile. On the way back, Dongbo Shuiying was in a good mood. Although he had experienced a dangerous battle of life and death, the value of a shadow leopard was more than 100,000 gold coins. The shadow leopard's satin-like fur had the effect of concealing, and was a precious refining material. Of course, the fur of the shadow leopard fell into the hands of the rich and powerful. It was their favorite. Wearing a shadow leopard's fur would make one look beautiful and dignified. How many people would be jealous of them? To the Snow Eagle it didn't matter, as long as it was worth money. Within the mountain range of Desolation's campsite, when Dongbo Shuiying and Zongling returned to the campsite after walking for 4 hours, the sky was already dark. After eating dinner, Zongling went to rest, but Dongbo Shuiying didn't. Crackle! The campsite's bonfire continued to burn, driving away the cold. Dongbo Shuiying sat cross-legged next to the bonfire, and the Feishua god spear was placed flat on his knees. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged quietly, the light from the bonfire shining on his face. Quiet. The night was very quiet. Dongbo Shuiying attentively felt his body, feeling every bone and muscle in his body, feeling the expansion and contraction of his heart, and the strong flow of his blood like a raging river. Previously, when he was on the verge of death, he had already reached the realm of power as one. At this moment he was attentively experiencing and consolidating his strength. Rise! Dongbo Shuiying suddenly stood up, and with the Feishua god spear in his hand, he began to practice his spear arts. Man and spear became one, as though he had transformed into a flood dragon. Spear shadows flashed and snowflakes fluttered. Good spear, good spear. Dongbo Shuiying stopped, and looked at the Feishua god spear in his hand, his face filled with joy. The human eye had a temporary vision. If the spear was fast enough, the human eye would be able to see multiple spears attacking at the same time. Of course, different humans had different temporary vision. Ordinary knights, earth knights, heaven knights. The temporary vision was more ordinary. The temporary vision of a star knight was extremely short. For transcendence, The temporary vision of a transcendent was even shorter. This time, when he came to the mountain range of desolation, Dongbu Shuiying's spear arts could reach the 5-spear realm. With the temporary vision of a star knight, he would be able to see a total of 5 spears. Even if he were to use his primordial bloodline, he would barely be able to reach the 7-spear realm. But now, power as one, with perfect control over every single strand of strength in his body, even if he did not use his strength, he could easily reach the 7-spear realm. As for the Feishua God's spear, as a divine weapon, only in the hands of a spear master would it be able to display its true power. The inside of the Feishua God's spear was like the arteries and veins of the human body. When the spear collided with the enemy's weapon, or when the spear was suddenly retracted, it would produce an opposite force. This force would normally dissipate within the spear. However, the inside of the Feishua God's spear would perfectly transmit this force, and would not dissipate within a short period of time. Normally, a spear master would not care about the rebounding force of the spear, and would even feel that it was a hindrance. But as a spear master, he could perfectly utilize this force, and even use it to attack faster. Power as one. I have reached the 7-spear realm. The Feishua God spear is able to perfectly utilize all kinds of strength, allowing the spear's power to increase. Just the speed alone would allow me to reach the 8-spear realm. Once I use my primordial bloodline again, that would be the 10-spear realm. Dongbu Shuiying was somewhat excited. The shadow leopard's death was not unjust. At that time, Dongbu Shuiying's final attack had reached the terrifying level of the 10-spear realm. This was a terrifying spear speed that could completely suppress a Silver Moon Knight. A weaker Silver Moon Knight would not even be able to block a few spear strikes before being killed. This is still not my limit. My spear speed can be even faster. Dongbu Shuiying began to practice the transcendent life spear art that his father had left behind for him, the mystic ice spear art. It was the absolute art of a powerful transcendent knight. Only when one became a spear master would he be able to learn the first level. The do qi in his body revolved to support his body's strength. The spear spun like a python, and when the spear thrust out, the arc of rotation was even more shocking. When the spear was retracted, it had to be retracted in the opposite direction. This thrust and retraction, the powerful rotation and counter-rotation, would allow the spear shaft to contain a rotational force. With such a powerful force, a normal spear expert would feel their palms go numb, and the spear shaft would fly out of their hands. But the mystic ice spear art utilized this kind of force. Not right. The force exertion is wrong. The rotational force is not pure enough. Dongbu Shuiying practiced his spear technique again and again. Walla, walla. At night in the camp, the sound of the spear whistling caused the soldiers on night watch to feel their scalps go numb. They looked at their young lord who was practicing his spear technique next to the bonfire, and could not help but be in awe. The Lord is indeed the Lord. Amazing. He is already at the mountain range of desolation, but he is still practicing his spear so crazily at night. No wonder he is so powerful. When the Lord was 8 years old, he was already crazy. I can't endure this kind of suffering. The soldiers quietly discussed. Dongbu Shuiying practiced the techniques of the first level of the mystic ice spear art again and again. Although the mystic ice knight Gu Yuan Han had described it in detail, it was still very difficult to learn. Fortunately, as a spear master, Dongbu Shuiying was able to control his strength very precisely, which was why he was able to learn it. The night quickly passed, and the sky became bright. See, the spear thrust out. Like a python that moved in an instant, the sound in the air was very short. It was not the usual whooshing sound, but a short sigh sound. When the spear was retracted, the entire spear shaft's rotation could be seen with the naked eye, and then it was quickly thrust out again. Dongbu Shuiying revealed a look of joy. A faint blood-red aura suddenly appeared around his body. His strength completely erupted, and he displayed the terrifying spear technique to his heart's content. Xiao 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 xiao. The snowflakes around the spear shaft floated, and the spear tip formed a pattern that looked like snowflakes that stopped in the air. A total of 12 spear snowflakes stopped in the air before dissipating. He had actually reached the terrifying 12-spear realm. The first level of mystic ice spear art, floating snow. This unique skill had a huge increase in the speed of the spear technique. The mystic Ice Knight Gu Yuan Han spear technique was originally known for its speed. The second and third levels were even faster, but also more difficult. 12 Spear Realm. Dongbu Shuiying revealed a smile. The first level of mystic ice spear art, floating snow. I finally mastered it. After becoming a spear master and learning the basics of the mystic ice spear art, Dongbu Shuiying's strength had an astonishing increase. Chapter 21. Frost covered the ground, freezing it hard. Tranquil Sun Province was after all the northernmost part of the continent. It was even colder in winter. You're not entering the mountain range of desolation today? Zhongling and Dongbu Shuiying walk side by side. Is it because you killed the shadow leopard and are preparing to go back? The shadow leopard's corpse was worth more than 100,000 gold coins. Dongbu Shuiying's main purpose in coming to the mountain range of desolation was to earn money for his brother. No. Dongbu Shuiying laughed. After the battle with the shadow leopard, my spear technique had a breakthrough. I trained for an entire night without rest. I'm preparing to practice my spear technique. After a good night's sleep, tomorrow I'll be full of energy before entering the mountain range of desolation and exterminate the Silver Moon Wolves. Exterminate the Silver Moon Wolves? Are you confident? Zhongling was shocked. Confident? Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Before his breakthrough, his chances of success against the entire Silver Moon Wolves were less than 10%, and the possibility of death was extremely high. But now, his spear technique had improved too much. Even without activating his bloodline, he could reach the 10-spear realm. Previously, he was only at the 5-spear realm. This was a qualitative improvement. As long as you have enough confidence. Zhongling was pleased. Seeing the snow eagle becoming stronger, he was also happy. Noon of the second day. In a dark forest in the mountain range of desolation, the howls of wolves could be heard everywhere. Some were frightened, some were angry. The corpses of the Silver Moon Wolves were everywhere. The huge Silver Moon Wolf King was standing on a huge rock and howling. A large number of Silver Moon Wolves were rushing towards a black-clothed youth. Kill. The black-clothed youth was advancing. Snowflakes fluttered and the spear was cold. Every time it flashed, a Silver Moon Wolf would fall. All of them had their throats, heads, and other vital points pierced through. His spear technique was too fast. No matter how crazily the Silver Moon Wolves attacked, they were unable to break through Dongbu Shuiying's spear technique circle. Those who dared to approach died. This pack of Silver Moon Wolves was the overlord of the surrounding area. Other magical beasts didn't dare to provoke them. Even when the human army swept through the area, if they encountered the Silver Moon Wolves, there would be many casualties. Because the Silver Moon Wolves were large in size, they had strong charging power, and they were not afraid of death. It was equivalent to 200 to 300 heaven-ranked knights besieging them at the same time. It was indeed a nightmare. But now Dongbu Shuiying had become the nightmare of these Silver Moon Wolves. Die. Dongbu Shuiying did not show any mercy as he killed these Silver Moon Wolves. Magical beasts were the enemies of the entire human race. This was also the reason why the human army had to wipe them out time and time again. The demonic beasts slaughtered human cities over and over again. This was a common occurrence when humans were weak. Roar! The Silver Moon Wolf King finally charged towards Dongbu Shuiying. Good timing. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes lit up. Scram! The spear in Dongbu Shuiying's hands was like a nimble dragon, whipping the Silver Moon Wolves on both sides. The Silver Moon Wolves on both sides were either sent flying or fell to the side. As a spear grandmaster, his control over the power of his spear was very precise, poking the grass to find the snake. As the spear lashed out, the Silver Moon Wolves parted like grass, while Dongbu Shuiying charged towards the Silver Moon Wolf King. The Silver Moon Wolf King was shocked. It originally wanted to surround and attack Ying with its subordinates. Facing this young human's imposing manner, it felt a trace of panic, and even wanted to turn around and escape. But it was too late. Boo! The spear whistled as it spun and pierced towards the Silver Moon Wolf King. The Silver Moon Wolf King immediately leaped up and dodged the spear. The spear pierced through the Silver Moon Wolf King's body. Get up! Dongbu Shuiying suddenly exerted force. The spear changed from a furious stab to an upward slash. It directly struck the Silver Moon Wolf King's body. Pung! A muffled sound could be heard as the Silver Moon Wolf King's abdomen was struck. It let out a mournful howl as blood flowed out of its mouth and nose. Its body tumbled to the side. Swish! The spear was as fast as lightning. In an instant it pierced through the Silver Moon Wolf King's throat, piercing through its fur. The gigantic Silver Moon Wolf King was completely rooted to the ground. The Wolf King's body struggled helplessly. The remaining hundreds of Silver Moon wolves retreated in panic. This black-robed young human was too terrifying. Owa! Owa! These Silver Moon wolves let out panicked howls as they quickly turned around and fled. Beautiful Snow Eagle! I didn't expect you to be able to deal with an entire pack of Silver Moon wolves so easily. Zhongling appeared as well. My spear arts are very suitable for dealing with encirclement. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Hurry up and dissect it to collect the materials. Zhongling said. The stench of blood here is too strong. Although this is the territory of the Silver Moon wolves, as time passes, other magical beasts will come. Leave the dissection to me. I'm more experienced than you. Clang clang clang. Zhongling immediately took out 6 sabers. With a wave of his 6 arms, the Silver Moon Wolf King's corpse was quickly dissected. This is the heart of the Silver Moon. Dongbua Shuang immediately stored it in a metal box and placed it into his storage pendant. Because the storage pendant was used to store the Shadow Leopard's corpse, the remaining space was very small. However, it was still enough to store some small items. After harvesting a few precious materials, then he peeled off the entire Silver Moon Wolf King's fur. What a pity! The Silver Moon Wolf King's meat can be sold for a very high price. I can only waste it like this. Zhongling shook his head. The Silver Moon Wolf King's meat was close to 20,000 jin. With such a huge body, how could it be carried? Even if it was so heavy, how could it walk? And the stench of blood would definitely attract more magical beasts. Let's go. Zhongling folded the Silver Moon Wolf King's fur and tied it up with a cloth. It was taller than a person. This fur alone is close to 2,000 jin. Zhongling exclaimed. I'll carry it. Dongbua Shuang was strong, so he didn't care about 2,000 jin. Carrying the huge Silver Moon Wolf King's fur on his back, the Wolf King's head drooped to one side. The snow-white fur was indeed very beautiful. The color was even brighter, and the whiteness was even higher than that of an ordinary Silver Moon wolf. This was the clothing material that many nobles liked. It looked very domineering when used on the bed or on the ground. It would also be a very valuable collection if hung on the wall. Not counting the other materials, just this Silver Moon Wolf King's fur alone was worth about 50,000 gold coins. Naturally, he had to carry it back. Come, let's go home. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Yes, let's go home. Zhongling was also very happy. This trip to the mountain range of desolation had really been very rewarding. Bent Blade Union. Their nest was very well hidden. It was located in the belly of a huge mountain, and was only about 200 li away from the outside. One ear, I heard that the Luo family is not willing to pay this time? 2 bandits were hiding in the weeds at the top of a mountain next to their nest. They were watching the movements while chatting. The Luo family said that they are only willing to pay half. Otherwise, it will be a life and death struggle. The one-eared skinny man said. I think that the Luo family has been squeezed too much, and they are almost out of money. F*ck their ancestors. The leader said that not a single copper coin can be missing. They dare to not pay? Next time we will go to the Luo family's territory and kill them. After destroying a few villages, the Luo family will know fear. These damned nobles, they will not shed tears until they see the coffin. The one-eared bandit cursed in a low voice. Look, there is someone. There is actually someone who dares to enter the mountain range of desolation. The 2 bandits in charge of guarding the nest were shocked. There were more than 10 bandits in charge of guarding the nest, but they were mainly worried about the magical beasts. As for the humans, it had been a long time since humans attacked their nest. As for the human army, they had some friends in the army. If the army made a big move, they would have already left the mountain and waited outside. Look, isn't that the 6-armed Naga? The Snow Eagle Territory's 6-armed Naga, Zhongling. The one-eared bandit immediately recognized that the 6-armed Naga was an expert who had fought with their leader and survived. The young man beside him is carrying a very beautiful fur. It is much more beautiful than the average silver moon wolf fur we have seen before. And that fur is so big. It should be the silver moon wolf king's. The two bandits looked at each other. The silver moon wolf king's fur? That was worth about 50,000 gold coins. The entire snow eagle territory could be sold for about this price. Such a beautiful snow white wolf fur. So white, so big, and so shiny. It must be the silver moon wolf king. It must be. One Ear, quickly go and report to the leader. I will keep an eye on it. The two bandits were so excited that they were almost drooling. This was definitely a big business. But whether to snatch the silver moon wolf king's fur or not was up to the leader. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.